Naruto. Kidnapping Rin Nohara to create the strongest Kirigakure. Chapter 61. Shisui rushed to pursue Kagaya Tetsu, and other Konoha ninja also hastily left, leaving behind only the ruined streets. No one noticed that in a collapsed house, several pairs of eyes had been observing the entire incident. They were Konoha Anbu. This Anbu squad had infiltrated Kusagakure independently. Even their fellow Anbu colleagues were unaware of their existence, because they only obeyed the Hokage's orders to carry out a certain S-rank mission. To closely monitor the performance of the Uchiha clan. The Uchiha clan members are dissatisfied with the Hokage and were successfully provoked by the enemy's few words. Uchiha Shisui intervened to resolve the situation. No abnormal actions have been found yet. Kagaya Tetsu did not kill Uchiha Tekka. Was he deliberately provoking? Or could he really be colluding with the Uchiha? Further observation is needed. The Anbu captain finished writing the last word and closed his notebook. He made a gesture, and the group once again submerged into the shadows, chasing in the direction Shisui had left. At this moment, Kusagakure was in chaos. The Konoha squad had surrounded the village, clearing out enemy ninja with the Kusagakure ninja, but the Sunagakure, Iwagakure, and Kumogakure ninja were not to be trifled with. They resisted desperately, and the vast village was a battlefield everywhere. Originally, the Konoha squad had the upper hand, but just now, the giant Akamichi Dodo crashed to the ground, attracting many people's attention. The Konoha squad's morale was severely hit, and news also spread that the AB combo had arrived and was fiercely battling Minato Namikaze, causing the battle to fall back into a stalemate. But this was very advantageous for Kagaya Tetsu and Mei Terumi's escape. Mei Terumi leapt and landed on the broken rooftops, unable to resist secretly glancing at the white-haired youth's perfect profile. Proud as she was, she now admired Kagaya Tetsu immensely. This guy had more tricks up his sleeve than fish in the sea. Whether it was the previous public opinion battle or facing the enemy's encirclement just now, he always managed to turn danger into safety with his clever ideas. Kagaya Tetsu also seemed to understand the Uchiha quite well, always accurately grasping the psychology of that powerful ninja clan, and then easily provoking their relationship with Konoha. What surprised her most was that Kagaya Tetsu was immune to Sharingan Genjutsu. This was too outrageous. Mei Terumi had heard many battle examples of the Sharingan from Master Genji since childhood, and ordinary ninja facing the Sharingan had only one best option. Run. In the land of hot springs, Mei Terumi was far from Kagaya Tetsu and hadn't discovered his little secret. It was only when she observed him at close range just now that she confirmed Kagaya Tetsu was indeed not afraid of the Sharingan. Could Tetsu have Uchiha bloodline? A bold idea popped into Mei Terumi's mind. But then she thought it was unlikely. Tetsu's parents were clearly traceable and were Kagaya clan members. Forget it. Since Tetsu doesn't tell me, I won't ask. Mei Terumi quickly convinced herself. She admitted she liked Kagaya Tetsu a lot, but that didn't mean she had to treat Kagaya Tetsu as her possession and know all his secrets. Mei, what are you spacing out for? Kagaya Tetsu saw Mei Terumi running while lost in thought and asked curiously. Mei Terumi snapped back to reality, about to make an excuse to brush him off, when her eyes suddenly lit up. Look. She pointed with her small hand, and a ninja seagull was flying rapidly towards them. It also spotted them and quickly landed on Mei Terumi's shoulder. It's an urgent message from the village. Mei Terumi skillfully took down the scroll from the ninja seagull's back, unrolled it, and her face brightened with joy. Tetsu, the village has dispatched reinforcements, they should be arriving soon. Kagaya Tetsu took it, glanced over it, and nodded with a smile. It seems Zabuza isn't just a simple brute after all. He didn't know how Zabuza had convinced the village to send troops, but it certainly wasn't simple. Just then, a series of whooshing sounds rang out, and more than 10 kunai and shuriken flew from behind. The two quickly dodged. As annoying as fish skin plaster. Mei Terumi saw a large group of pursuers coming again and couldn't help but curse. In this inland area, the pure white ninja seagull was extremely conspicuous. Although it delivered them information, it also instantly attracted the attention of the Konoha ninja. Kagaya Tetsu said decisively. Mei, you follow the ninja seagull to find the main force and tell them the intelligence here. I'll lure away the Konoha people. Mei Terumi bit her red lip, Keigaya Tetsu, let me remind you, I am the captain. Luring the enemy should be done by the captain. You go and meet up with the main force. Keigaya Tetsu didn't wait for her to finish, suddenly leaning in. Smack. Mei Terumi's face felt wet, and her head was spinning. You. Her face visibly flushed, and her brown hair stood on end, like a startled cat. If you're angry, you can get revenge later. Keigaya Tetsu smiled brightly and turned to run towards the Konoha squad. You just wait. Mei Terumi stomped her foot fiercely, knowing it wasn't the time to argue, and quickly let the ninja seagull lead her away. Fire release. Great Dragon Fire Technique. Fire release. Dragon Flame Release Song Technique. Lightning release. Thunderbolt Stream Technique. Before Keigaya Tetsu even got close, more than 10 ninjutsu techniques were unleashed as if they cost nothing. He calmly rushed forward and engaged in close combat, trying to buy Mei Terumi more time. Until he saw that figure in the distance. Keigaya Tetsu didn't expect Uchiha Shisui to be here too. Shisui's voice came from behind the Konoha pursuers. Everyone, step back. Leave him to me. Uchiha Shisui swept past the main force like a gust of wind, instantly appearing before Keigaya Tetsu. He deliberately left the others behind, wanting to deal with Keigaya Tetsu cleanly, without giving him any chance to reveal his Mangekyo. Keigaya Tetsu naturally guessed his intention and turned to flee. Shisui was coming to kill him directly this time, he had no chance of winning. Activating the Mayflight technique would take at least a few seconds, which was not enough time in front of Shisui. Just then, Keigaya Tetsu saw a purple question mark suddenly appear on the system map. The question mark was about 10 meters away from him. Keigaya Tetsu glanced at it and found it was an ordinary large tree, nothing special. Only amidst the dense leaves, a purple glow was emanating. Someone is hiding inside. Keigaya Tetsu's mind raced, and he instantly had an idea. Since the other party was hidden and hadn't shown up, they were probably not Konoha ambushers, but ninja from an enemy village. It would be better to force this guy out. If the opponent was strong enough, they could help him hold off Shisui. If not, even just interfering with Shisui's pursuit would allow him to use the Mayflight technique to escape. Shisui was getting closer, and Keigaya Tetsu had no choice but to quickly run over, planning to go all in. Half an hour ago, in the Konoha encampment outside Kusagakure, Uchiha Itachi listened to the increasingly loud shouts of battle in the distance and watched the Akamichi clan giant fall, no longer able to suppress the impulse in his heart. I'm sorry, father, I must go see for myself. Injured Uchiha clan members were constantly being carried back for treatment. Itachi saw the fierce battle and decided he could no longer stay out of it. As the young clan head, while his comrades on the front line were fighting to the death, he was safely hidden here. What kind of talk was that? No matter who it was, once on the front line, they should participate in the battle, especially since his strength already surpassed many genin, making him fully qualified to be on the battlefield. Taking advantage of the guards' inattention, Uchiha Itachi secretly slipped out of the encampment and resolutely headed for Kusagakure. Just as he entered Kusagakure, Uchiha Itachi was severely shaken by the scene before him. The smell of blood assailed his nose, and the ground was littered with corpses that had died in bizarre ways, some from Konoha, others from different villages. The 4-year-old felt his stomach churn, and he held onto a nearby wall, beginning to dry heave. So, this is what a battlefield is like. Uchiha Itachi would never forget the scene he had just witnessed. His ninja academy teachers often praised him for being calm and decisive, possessing wisdom far beyond his peers, and Uchiha Itachi had always believed he could step onto the battlefield at any time. Only now, seeing this hellish scene with his own eyes, did he realize how naive he had been. A question couldn't help but arise in his heart. Why must people kill each other? They should be using every means possible to pursue peace. Uchiha Itachi was deep in thought when he suddenly saw a figure rapidly approaching in the distance. Brother Shisui. Recognizing the person, he quickly hid up a large tree nearby. In Itachi's heart, Shisui was second only to his parents in authority. If Shisui discovered he had snuck out, he would probably be sent back to Konoha immediately, losing the chance to continue experiencing the battlefield. Hiding in the dense leaves, Uchiha Itachi saw that Shisui was chasing a youth who looked a few years older than himself. Who could brother Shisui be so concerned about? Uchiha Itachi was very curious. Not just any enemy was qualified to be chased by body flicker Shisui, especially since the opponent looked only 12 or 13, which in Konoha was just the age to graduate from the ninja academy. But no matter the enemy, once brother Shisui targeted them, there shouldn't be any chance of turning the tables. As he carefully observed the opponent, his expression suddenly changed. The fleeing enemy suddenly sensed something, abruptly stopped, sharply changed direction, and reached the base of the large tree where he was hiding in just a few steps. This is bad. Uchiha Itachi wanted to flee, but unfortunately, Kagaya Tetsu was faster. He leapt onto the tree with a whoosh and grabbed him by the neck. Kagaya Tetsu was also stunned when he saw his captive. Black short hair, the Uchiha clan clothing stamped with the billiard cue symbol, and that iconic tear trough. Uchiha Itachi. He muttered softly in confusion. Uchiha Itachi couldn't help but widen his eyes, surprised that the opponent knew who he was. Seeing his reaction, Kagaya Tetsu confirmed that this person was Uchiha Itachi. I actually caught a big fish. He was both surprised and delighted, having unexpectedly captured the young clan head of the Uchiha. Kagaya Tetsu recalled that Uchiha Itachi had followed his father to the front lines during the Third Great Ninja War, meaning he had stumbled upon him by chance. He had originally planned to use the person hiding in the tree to distract Uchiha Shisui and then escape, but now he felt that would be a waste. It would be a pity not to properly utilize this rare encounter with the great filial son. Uchiha Itachi grabbed Kagaya Tetsu's arm with both hands, struggling in vain. Kagaya Tetsu tightened his grip on Itachi's neck slightly. With a crack, Uchiha Itachi felt sharp pain in his neck bone and immediately stopped resisting. Itachi. Shisui also arrived and was horrified by the scene in the tree. Shouldn't Itachi be in the main camp? How did he end up in this tree? He raised his head and said to Kagaya Tetsu in a deep voice. Let him go, and I'll let you leave. To show sincerity, Shisui sheathed his short sword. As long as Itachi survived, he was willing to let Kagaya Tetsu go for now. Unexpectedly, Kagaya Tetsu seemed not to hear him, chuckling lightly as he complimented. As expected of body flicker Shisui, you managed to mediate the conflict between your clan members and the Konoha ninja so quickly. Uchiha Shisui was startled, wondering why Kagaya Tetsu suddenly brought that up. Because those words weren't meant for him, they were meant for Uchiha Itachi. Sure enough, Uchiha Itachi, who had been trying to remain calm just moments ago, instantly showed a look of shock. Brother Shisui, did the clan members fight with the villagers? Ignoring the fact that his neck was still being squeezed by Kagaya Tetsu, he asked loudly. Uchiha Shisui was not a good liar, so he reluctantly nodded. Itachi, that was just a misunderstanding, it was all due to this guy from the hidden mist misleading them. He rambled on with his explanation, but Uchiha Itachi completely ignored the latter half of his words. Itachi knew the relationship between the clan and the village had always been strained, but he never expected it to be this terrible. This was the front line. Not only was the Uchiha clan not fighting diligently, but they were actually attacking fellow village ninja. It would be better if those Hawk faction members just disappeared. This thought suddenly popped into Uchiha Itachi's mind. Seeing Itachi's expression suddenly worsen, Uchiha Shisui finally realized what was happening and quickly shouted. Itachi, this guy is an expert at manipulating people's minds, don't listen to his nonsense. Kagaya Tetsu showed an innocent expression. What, are people not allowed to talk about the disgusting things Konoha and the Uchiha do? Just as the two were speaking, the Konoha squad that Shisui had left behind also arrived, and upon hearing Kagaya Tetsu's words, their expressions became complicated. News traveled fast on the battlefield, and many people had already heard about Uchiha Tekka drawing his sword against a civilian ninja. Frankly, if Shisui didn't have such good personal standing, few people would likely be willing to come and help him right now. Seeing the expressions of the others, Uchiha Itachi felt even worse. He had risked coming to the battlefield, originally intending to help his fellow villagers, only to find that the Uchiha name seemed to have been completely ruined by certain individuals long ago. Unconsciously, resentment towards his clan members arose in his heart. Uchiha Shisui inwardly regretted this, wondering if Itachi having witnessed the disgraceful actions of their clan members firsthand, would develop some negative ideas. At this moment, he couldn't worry about anything else. He clenched his fist and persuaded Kagaya Tetsu again. Enough nonsense, release him immediately and get out of here. Shisui realized that this hidden mist brat was like an unstable exploding tag. The longer he stayed here, the more uncontrollable the situation would become. Unexpectedly, Kagaya Tetsu shook his head. This is the young clan head of the Uchiha, there's no way I'm giving him back to you. With that, he moved his feet, making a gesture as if he planned to leave with Itachi. Shisui, even for your brother, use Koto Amatsukami on me. A faint, almost imperceptible smile curled Kagaya Tetsu's lips. He could, of course, leave easily, but before that, he intended to drop another bombshell. Seeing him about to run, Uchiha Shisui was drenched in sweat. If Itachi were truly captured and taken back to the Hidden Mist village, who knew what would happen? The distance was too great, and neither he nor the others were confident they could instantly kill Kagaya Tetsu. I have to use that. Shisui could no longer worry about anything else. The tomo in his eyes spun rapidly, connecting instantly to form a grotesque shape. Koto Amatsukami. The immense eye power contained in his left eye surged forth like an overwhelming tide, bombarding Kagaya Tetsu's mind entirely. He knew Kagaya Tetsu seemed immune to Sharingan Genjutsu, but surely the opponent would be powerless to resist this strongest of all Genjutsu. Shisui, having run out of options, had no choice but to try. Kagaya Tetsu, who had been tightly choking Itachi moments before, suddenly froze completely, his pupils dilated. His hands loosened, releasing Uchiha Itachi's arm. Uchiha Itachi seized the opportunity, quickly jumped away from the tree, and ran swiftly to Uchiha Shisui's side. Brother Shisui. He was still just a child, and after escaping danger, his nose stung, and he instantly threw himself into Shisui's arms. Uchiha Shisui, however, felt no joy from successfully saving him, standing dumbfounded in place. Uchiha Itachi stayed in Shisui's arms for a moment, then suddenly felt something was wrong. The surroundings were dead silent. He looked at the Konoha ninja and saw that everyone was staring intently at Shisui, some confused, some fearful, some excited. Shisui's eyes just now didn't seem to be Sharingan, did they? They were Sharingan. I heard from the elders in my family that many years ago, Uchiha Madara also had such eyes, possessing godlike power. That genjutsu was terrifying. It actually made that hidden mist brat obediently release Itachi. Why didn't Shisui mention having such eyes? Is he guarding against the village? Whispers came from all directions, and even Uchiha Itachi sensed trouble. At this moment, several Uchiha ninja began to cheer. Mangekyo Sharingan. The Uchiha clan finally has a Mangekyo Sharingan again. They simultaneously let out the Uchiha clan's characteristic maniacal laughter, completely oblivious to the fearful gazes of others. Uchiha Itachi gently tugged Shisui's sleeve. Brother Shisui, what's with those eyes? Uchiha Shisui closed his eyes in pain, and when he opened them again, his eyes had returned to normal. His heart was ashes. The secret he had kept for so long was unexpectedly forced out by Kagaya Tetsu after all. Shisui vaguely had a premonition that a storm would soon brew within the village and the clan. Itachi, don't mention that for now. He frowned, looking in the direction Kagaya Tetsu had stood earlier, only to find that the other party had vanished, having escaped by some unknown means. Recovered so quickly. Shisui was shocked. He used his left eye's Koto Amatsukami, which had a shorter cooldown but weaker control. He originally thought he could control Kagaya Tetsu for at least a few hours, but he didn't expect the other party to escape without anyone noticing. Shisui had no choice but to take Uchiha Itachi's hand and hurriedly leave the area. He had to go to Uchiha Fugaku immediately to discuss what to do next. Uchiha, awakening the Mangekyo and hiding it. In the shadows of a corner, the Anbu captain responsible for monitoring Shisui also witnessed the scene. Even though he was battle-hardened, cold sweat was pouring down him at this moment. He had been familiar with Konoha's history since childhood, so he naturally knew that those were Mangekyo Sharingan. The problem was that Shisui's Mangekyo ability was too bizarre. He just glared at the hidden mist brat, and the other party obediently released the hostage. Could those eyes change a person's will? If such a genjutsu were used on the Hokage, the consequences would be unimaginable. He stopped monitoring the Uchiha, secretly left with his squad, and quickly returned to Konoha. On the other side, Keigaya Tetsu used the mayfly technique to quickly move underground, following the direction Mei Terumi had left. Half a minute later, he emerged from the bushes, letting out a long breath, finally shaking off the Konoha squad. Now the Uchiha should be temporarily unable to participate in this war. He showed a smile of a successful trick. After using Uchiha Itachi to force Shisui, that guy indeed used Koto Amatsukami. Keigaya Tetsu immediately pretended to be affected and released Itachi. He never intended to kill the filial son from the start. After all, Uchiha Itachi's destructive power against Konoha was even greater than a tailed beast ball. Making Uchiha Shisui reveal his Mangekyo in front of everyone was his true goal. The Uchiha clan would definitely fall into a storm of suspicion. Konoha would not be able to send them to the battlefield in the short term, and the Hidden Mist village's pressure would also be greatly reduced. Just as Keigaya Tetsu was about to rest, he heard rustling sounds around him. Kusagakure was surrounded by a vast grassland, full of grass taller than a person, making it ideal for infiltration. Just as he was on high alert, he suddenly saw a pretty face. Mei. A soft body slammed into him. Keigaya Tetsu felt his breath tighten, unable to breathe. The pressure was too strong. It's great that you're okay. Mei Terumi hugged him tightly, completely oblivious that she was a head taller than Keigaya Tetsu, leaving him in an awkward position. A muffled voice came from behind her. HMPH, not dead yet. Keigaya Tetsu broke free from Mei Terumi, saw the cool face, and gave a thumbs up with a smile. Zabuza, you really brought reinforcements. As expected of the powerful demon of the bloody mist. Hearing his praise, Zabuza was very pleased and was about to say something with his chin raised when another small figure appeared. Keigaya Tetsu, you've done well. Leave the rest to us. This person had a baby face and a gentle, calm tone, but both Mei Terumi and Zabuza showed reverence for him. Keigaya Tetsu bowed slightly. Lord Yagura. It seemed the Hidden Mist village was truly desperate this time, even sending Yagura Karataki to lead the reinforcements personally. Keigaya Tetsu reported the battle situation to Yagura in a few concise words, then asked. Lord Yagura, Kusagakure is in a chaotic battle, with ninja from various villages. How many people did we bring this time? If the Hidden Mist was as stingy as before, only sending 100 or 200 people, then he felt there was no need to go in. Yagura said confidently. 500 people. In addition, the Mizukage-sama has already contacted the Kazekage and Tsuchikage, inviting them to cooperate with us. Keigaya Tetsu nodded. Sending 500 people at once was a big move for the Hidden Mist village. What surprised him somewhat was the Mizukage. According to Yagura, that man seemed to have been prepared for a long time, secretly contacting the cage of other villages in advance, planning a joint attack on Konoha. Previously, the Mizukage had shown no intention of attacking, yet secretly he had made arrangements without a sound. He was indeed an inscrutable man. Oh, right. He suddenly remembered something and warned. Don't enter from the east, Uchiha Shisui is stationed there. Keigaya Tetsu was unsure of Shisui's current mood. If he was just depressed because of the Mangekyo's exposure, that would be fine, but if Shisui was in a furious state, the Mist Village troop would be walking right into a trap. To his surprise, Yagura Karataki said with a complicated expression. A unit has already charged in. Keigaya Tetsu was puzzled. Who? Logically, the Mist Village troop should closely follow Yagura, but looking at his constipated expression, it seemed some hothead had acted without authorization. Before Yagura could answer, he quickly guessed the answer. It's Keigaya's people, isn't it? East of Kusagakure, a group of madmen with insane smiles suddenly joined the battlefield. Where they passed, limbs flew, leaving only a mess of corpses. Ha ha ha, Uchiha Shisui is nothing special. Leading the charge was a burly young man, clad in white robes, with two buns that didn't match his appearance at all, his face splattered with crimson blood. Immediately, someone flattered him. As expected of Lord Keigaya Tora, much stronger than that Keigaya Tetsu. Even body flicker Shisui has to avoid Lord Tora's edge. Let's take Kusagakure in one go and make everyone recognize as Keigaya again. The unit that rushed into Kusagakure first, disregarding Yagura's orders, belonged to the Keigaya clan. The young clan head, Keigaya Tora, led the charge, and not long after entering the village, he spotted Uchiha Shisui's figure. The other party was frantically retreating with a child. Even though Keigaya clan members killed many Konoha ninja in front of him, Uchiha Shisui only glanced back before continuing to flee in a hurry. In Keigaya Tora's eyes, this was irrefutable proof that Shisui was afraid of him. Brother Shisui, those guys are too hateful. Uchiha Itachi was tightly holding Shisui's hand, occasionally looking back, his small face filled with grief and indignation. More than a dozen Keigaya clan members abruptly joined the battlefield, wantonly slaughtering. The Konoha Chunin and Genin who couldn't escape were no match at all, brutally massacred by sharp weapons made of bone. Uchiha Itachi originally wanted to go back to help his companions, but Uchiha Shisui deliberately avoided this group of people when he saw them. Screams came from behind, and Uchiha Shisui forced himself not to look back, just pulling Uchiha Itachi and rushing forward. Looking at the current situation, the Hidden Mist Village's reinforcements have most likely also joined the battlefield. How could Shisui not want to fiercely beat the opponents? But he was rational. The most urgent task was to find clan head Fugaku to discuss the wording, ask him to immediately find a way to block the news from the Hawk faction clan members, and then immediately write a letter in Fugaku's name to the Hokage, explaining the situation. In short, Uchiha Fugaku must know as soon as possible, otherwise the situation will get worse and worse. Compared to this extremely urgent matter, Shisui had to temporarily abandon those companions. No matter how cruel the Keigaya clan was, at most they would kill dozens of people, but if this matter wasn't handled well and triggered a Konoha civil war, it wouldn't be as simple as just a few deaths. Shisui ran farther and farther with Itachi, and Keigaya Tora pouted boredly. I was planning to have a good fight with body flicker Shisui, is this all there is to it? Keigaya Tora felt a bit annoyed. As the dignified young clan head, he had been overshadowed by Keigaya Tetsu since childhood. Whenever Keigaya clan's genius was mentioned, everyone's reaction was Keigaya Tetsu. Recently, that hateful guy even came up with some continental balance plan, and the public opinion war he initiated even won praise from the village's high-ranking officials, which made Keigaya Tora even more upset. That brat only had the Keigaya surname, yet he barely interacted with the clan members, almost to the point of being a traitor. Such a guy was a disgrace to the Keigaya, why should he represent them? He finally encountered body flicker Shisui, and was about to have a big fight, but unexpectedly, the opponent was so afraid of him that he ran away without looking back, which was truly disappointing. He raised his right leg and stomped down hard. A dying grass-hidden girl on the ground was unable to resist, her head exploding like a watermelon. He then raised his right hand, and 10-finger piercing bullet flew out, riddling several fleeing civilians like a beehive. After venting, he still felt depressed. He drew his bone blade and walked towards several captives kneeling nearby. Among these people were Konoha ninja, as well as those from Sunagakure and Iwagakure who hadn't had time to escape earlier. Witnessing the Keigaya clan's brutal fighting style, they all surrendered and dared not speak. Cry, scream, you won't have the chance soon. He grinned, raising his bone blade to a captive, deliberately hovering it over the person's neck, savoring the enemy's fear before death. Keigaya Tora, don't kill them. An annoying voice entered his ears. Keigaya Tora's body stiffened, and he slowly turned around. Keigaya Tetsu came before him, followed by Mei Terumi and Zabuza. Yagura had originally told him to return to camp to rest, but Keigaya Tetsu saw many question marks on the map and couldn't sleep without exploring more, so he returned to the battlefield. It's like an angler seeing a pond full of mandarin fish, can they resist not casting their rod? They can't. He didn't expect to run into Keigaya Tora as soon as he arrived. Keigaya Tora immediately said proudly. Keigaya Tetsu, you have no right to tell me what to do. I just forced Uchiha Shisui to retreat, can you do that? Finally, he could show off in front of Keigaya Tetsu, it felt so good. Keigaya Tetsu shook his head and sighed softly. I suspect you don't need hand seals, you can just use water release by opening your mouth. He didn't know why Shisui was forced to retreat, but it certainly wasn't this idiot's credit. Keigaya Tora was stunned, then smiled proudly. Kagaya Tetsu, have you finally recognized my talent? Mei Terumi's small face struggled to maintain composure as she said, he means your head is full of water. The smile didn't disappear, it just transferred from Kagaya Tora's face to Mei Terumi's face. Kagaya Tora finally reacted, and his bone blade swished as he aimed it at Kagaya Tetsu, I'll kill you. His subordinates hadn't understood what happened yet, but seeing their young clan head so angry, they all adopted threatening postures. Mei Terumi said coldly. What, do you still want to attack your own clan members? Zabuza didn't speak, but his hand gripping the hilt of his sword indicated his stance. Kagaya Tetsu didn't make any moves, but his gaze towards Kagaya Tora was like looking at an invertebrate. It's been many years since I last beat you, I do feel a bit nostalgic. He smiled gently, but Kagaya Tora instinctively took 2 steps back. Although he was more than 10 years older than Kagaya Tetsu, he was often chased and beaten by Kagaya Tetsu when he was young, and now he wasn't confident he could win against this guy, especially with Mei Terumi and Zabuza by his side. He put away his bone blade and said fiercely. Kagaya Tetsu, even Uchiha Shisui had to avoid my edge, yet you are so rude to me. When I return, I will report this to Mizukage-sama. He spoke the most cowardly words in the fiercest tone, then left in a hurry with his subordinates. Shisui avoided your edge. Kagaya Tetsu felt that this statement had a kind of. He shook his head, too lazy to bother with these hotheads, and walked towards the captives. Tetsu, are you going to let them go? Mei Terumi asked curiously. She was nominally the captain, but unknowingly, she had become accustomed to listening to Kagaya Tetsu. Kagaya Tetsu chuckled, I am indeed going to let them go, but I'm not going to do it for free. Facing several captives who were almost scared to pee, he whispered softly. I'll release you now, but you have to help me spread a few words on the battlefield. It's very simple. Just say that Uchiha Shisui used a divine pupil technique that can manipulate people's hearts, and taking advantage of the chaos on the battlefield, he is helping his own clan members hunt down those ninja who usually harbor dissatisfaction with the Uchiha. Some Konoha squads have already started infighting with the Uchiha. His words were half-truths. Shisui did activate a divine pupil technique, and there were indeed Konoha squads clashing with the Uchiha, but combined, it was not at all as he described. Mixing a little truth into a lie makes such rumors the most deadly. One must learn the BBC's tactics. Several Sunagakure and Iwagakure captives immediately showed excited expressions, all expressing their willingness. They didn't care what Kagaya Tetsu wanted them to spread, as long as they could survive and strike Konoha, that was enough. The Konoha captives showed troubled expressions. They also disliked the Uchiha, but they also knew that Kagaya Tetsu definitely had ill intentions and didn't want to do something that would harm the village. Seeing their unwillingness, Kagaya Tetsu didn't force them. He just walked up to these Konoha ninja, turned his back to the others, and looked down at them. A few seconds later, the Konoha ninja's eyes became somewhat unfocused, and they all nodded in agreement to Kagaya Tetsu's request. Please, everyone. Kagaya Tetsu released the captives and let them leave. The Konoha forces had already shown signs of decline, but their strength was still very strong. Kagaya Tetsu intended to deliver a fatal blow to them and completely secure the victory. On the chaotic battlefield, messages quickly spread. Uchiha Shisui awakened a pupil technique that can manipulate people's hearts, taking the opportunity to kill fellow villagers for revenge. Uchiha Shisui used his eyes to control the Konoha forces to kill each other, those who didn't listen to him all died. Uchiha Shisui secretly controlled the Hokage's wife with his Sharingan. The matter was exposed, and other Konoha ninja were filled with righteous indignation, turning to attack the Uchiha clan members. The rumors grew wings and became increasingly outlandish, quickly causing unrest among the Konoha forces. If it were just enemy village ninja spreading it, that would be one thing, but the key was that the Konoha ninja controlled by Kagaya Tetsu were also spreading it. The squad that had previously clashed with Uchiha Tekka also confirmed the infighting, making the rumors even more credible. Moreover, many Konoha ninja had witnessed Shisui using his Mangekyo at the time, so the rumors quickly became irrefutable evidence. The Uchiha people had fiery tempers. Faced with suspicion and questioning from others, they directly resorted to violence after a few failed explanations. Many Konoha squads directly ignored the enemy village ninja and turned to fight the Uchiha. Konoha, which had been in an excellent situation, finally showed signs of defeat. When Shisui found Fugaku, he discovered that his clan head was sitting on a step, looking exhausted. Shisui, Itachi. Seeing that the two of them were unharmed, Fugaku finally managed to crack a rare smile. Shisui urgently said, "Clan head, something terrible has happened." Before he could finish, Fugaku raised a hand to interrupt. "Shisui, I already know." Uchiha Fugaku was responsible for leading Konoha's main force to eliminate other enemies. Having fought all the way here, he had naturally heard many rumors on the battlefield. If it were only rumors, it would be fine, but Fugaku had also encountered several Uchiha squads attacking Konoha ninja. Fortunately, he appeared in time to stop them, or the consequences would have been unimaginable. These Uchiha squads felt wronged. They clearly wanted to help the other Konoha ninja, but the rumors were spreading too fiercely, and the fact that many people had indeed seen Shisui activate his Mangekyo greatly increased the rumors' credibility. As a result, non-Uchiha ninja began to fear being stabbed in the back by the Uchiha. The Uchiha, unable to tolerate this slight, argued back with the foreign ninja, and many even started fighting directly. Under this vicious cycle, the rumor that the Uchiha are fighting amongst their comrades became reality. Kusagakure was a battlefield everywhere. Fugaku couldn't stop the spread of the rumors and could only watch helplessly as the favorable situation rapidly deteriorated. Uchiha Shisui clenched his fist, gritting his teeth. "Clan head, I apologize." He was overcome with shame. If he hadn't exposed his Mangekyo Sharingan, these outrageous rumors wouldn't have spread. Uchiha Itachi quickly spoke up. "Father, brother Shisui only did that to save me." He briefly explained what happened. Fugaku patted Shisui's shoulder gratefully and sighed heavily. "It's a pity we don't even know who the mastermind is." Uchiha Shisui looked toward the distant battlefield, a fierce glint flashing in his gentle eyes. "It's probably Kagaya Tetsu again." Fugaku was stunned. "Kagaya Tetsu? The one who forced you to retreat in the land of hot springs before." He had heard Shisui mention Kagaya Tetsu, but in his mind, he was just a hidden mist brat who knew a few tricks. How could he possibly have the ability to disrupt the battlefield? Shisui's face flushed upon hearing the clan head mention that unpleasant incident, and he could only nod, confirming it was indeed that guy. "I always had a premonition that guy wasn't just a simple brat, he will become a major threat to Konoha." A major threat. This was the first time Shisui had evaluated an enemy this way, so Fugaku had to take it seriously. Shisui also told Fugaku about Kagaya Tetsu severely injuring Akamichi Dodo and killing Inazuka Sume, which greatly shocked the Uchiha clan head. Those were two elite jonin belonging to Minato's squad, yet they were unexpectedly taken out by Kagaya Tetsu. Although Kagaya Tetsu used cunning methods, it was incredible that a mere brat could devise such schemes in a critical moment. After listening to Shisui's account, Fugaku finally understood why he suspected Kagaya Tetsu was responsible. Aside from such a profoundly evil brat, probably no one else could come up with such a malicious trick. He then thought of the previous movies and pamphlets, perhaps those were also this guy's doing. Unfortunately, Kagaya Tetsu's whereabouts were completely unknown, and they couldn't even seek revenge. "Clan head, what should we do now?" Shisui rarely showed such a worried expression. Fugaku pondered for a moment, then decisively said, "We must immediately find Minato, tell him about this, and ask him to decide." The usually indecisive Fugaku had surprisingly come up with a good plan. Shisui's eyes were already exposed. Concealing it was impossible, and lying that it was a sudden awakening would easily be exposed, likely leading to even stronger suspicion from the village. Since things had reached this point, telling Minato was the best option. Minato becoming the fourth Hokage was practically a certainty, and his attitude toward the Uchiha was friendly. If it were him, he might understand the pains taken by Fugaku and Shisui. Having made up their minds, the two were about to search for Minato's whereabouts when a flash of golden light streaked past, and Minato appeared before them. "Minato. Minato-sama." Fugaku and Shisui were greatly surprised to see the heavily wounded Minato. Minato gave a wry smile. "I ran into I and Killer B. I drove them off, but they also took the opportunity to kill the Kusa cage." Our plan to take control of Kusagakure is probably ruined. Hearing his words, everyone else gaped. No wonder Minato hadn't been seen throughout the entire battle. It turned out he had been fighting the ab combo alone. Seeing the bitter expression on Minato's face, Fugaku gently comforted him. Minato, this isn't your fault. Those two guys from Hidden Cloud Village are absolute monsters. One possesses the powerful lightning release chakra mode, and the other is simply the Eight Tails Jinchuriki. It was already incredible that Minato managed to hold them off for half a day. However, with the death of the moderate Kusakage, Kusagakure would inevitably fall into chaos, making it difficult for Konoha to intervene. Unexpectedly, the bad news wasn't over. Minato pulled out a letter. This is emergency intelligence just delivered by the Anbu. Rasa and Onoki took advantage of our inability to escape and flew directly to the land of hot springs. The village doesn't have much mobile power right now. Hokage-sama ordered us to go immediately for support and prevent the land of hot springs from falling into enemy hands. Seeing the seal on the letter, which belonged exclusively to the Hokage, Fugaku and Shisui felt utterly disheartened. What exactly happened? The Kazekage and Tsuchikage were actually cooperating. Onoki and Rasa are treacherous and move extremely fast. The land of hot springs had only recently been controlled by Konoha, and it would likely be lost again soon. It turned out that this seemingly guaranteed victory was destined to fail from the very beginning. Just barely missed it. Fugaku took one last look at Kusagakure, then followed Minato away from the area. A few blades of burned grass floated into the sky, the charred debris crumbling and shattering, much like the shattered glory of the Uchiha. Splat. A high-pressure water jet swept past, instantly turning several Konoha ninja into 2.5 Gojo Satoru. They are retreating. After repelling the enemies in front of her, Meiturumi saw that the other Konoha ninja were not charging forward but were instead fleeing Kusagakure in panic. Zabuza spat toward the corpses littering the ground, boring. This big shot hasn't killed enough yet. Although he said that, Zabuza secretly breathed a sigh of relief. The battle was finally coming to an end. As he spoke, he glanced at Kagaya Tetsu. Hey, you don't need to be so serious about checking corpses. Wouldn't stabbing them with a knife be enough? Kagaya Tetsu walked among the piles of corpses, occasionally touching areas like the chest and head. Zabuza thought he was checking for survivors so he could finish them off. I'm not called. Hey. My name is. Forget it, you wouldn't understand even if I told you. Kagaya Tetsu couldn't be bothered with him and just kept feeling around. The system map was covered in question marks, and the corpses were emitting countless white, green, and blue glows. As a veteran player of survival games, Joe Pai, how could he resist looting the bags? Just then, a rough voice suddenly rang out. Not bad for brats, your performance was acceptable. The three turned their heads and saw two enormous, black bears, slowly walking toward them. Taking a closer look, they weren't bears, but two people whose height and muscles were overly exaggerated. Seeing those muscles, Kagaya Tetsu couldn't help but wonder. They all use chakra, so how did the Hidden Cloud Village manage to develop such physiques? Did they also study bodybuilding, enjoying the 9 dragons pulling the coffin technique? Captain Meiturumi instinctively shielded her two teammates and greeted them with a solemn expression. I-sama, Killer B-sama. She cursed her bad luck, realizing the AB combo had also participated in this battle and they had run into them by chance. Hidden Mist Village and Hidden Cloud Village were also hostile toward each other, but since the war began, Konoha had been the primary enemy of both nations, leading to few direct confrontations. Killer B was once again immersed in his own creation. Yo tilde Hidden Mist geniuses are out of line tilde water release corpses are surprised tilde stupid 8 tails also nods tilde big brother decides whether to kill tilde. Shut up. I and the 8 tails yelled simultaneously. I'm almost scraping holes in the soles of my shoes. Kagaya Tetsu found the scene unbearable, yet he caught the underlying meaning. Hearing Killer B's lyrics, it seemed the AB combo had been silently watching the trio's battle and highly approved of their strength. This was not good news. Hidden Cloud Village loved kidnapping or killing enemy geniuses they encountered on the battlefield. Sure enough, I crossed his arms, which were thicker than an ordinary person's thigh, and spoke bluntly. Your talent is excellent. Staying in Hidden Mist Village is wasting it. Why don't you come back to the land of lightning with us? I guarantee that within a year, you'll have muscles like Killer Bee and me. Killer Bee cooperatively flexed his biceps, showing off his physique. Seeing those dark, bulging muscles, Terumi felt a wave of nausea and flatly refused. Thank you, but we have no plans to become rogue ninja. Ai's eyes turned dangerous. So, you intend to refuse me? Terumi and Zabuza simultaneously drew their swords, ready for battle. Kagaya Tetsu, however, didn't move. He merely said softly. Ai-sama, the three of us combined are no match for you. You are welcome to kill my two comrades, I can't stop you. But I guarantee you absolutely cannot kill me, and Hidden Cloud Village will definitely regret your decision. He wasn't lying. They couldn't fight the ab combo, but he could use the mayfly technique to escape immediately and then begin his revenge right away. He would stop at nothing, even risking using Obito and Madara. An invisible aura suddenly burst forth from him, and even the eight tails inside Killer Bee sensed something. Killer Bee whispered to Ai. Big brother, the eight tails told me that this brat is dangerous. Even he can't see through him. It's like he doesn't belong to this world. We'd better not complicate things further. Ai's expression remained unchanged, but his heart was filled with surprise. A tailed beast that has lived for thousands of years is not only immensely powerful but also possesses impeccable insight into the human heart. If even the eight tails thought this brat was unusual, then he was definitely worth paying attention to. Ha! What a shameless brat, but I like it. Before coming to Kusagakure this time, the third Raikage specifically instructed them to focus on assassinating the Kusa cage and avoid unnecessary actions. So, when he encountered the trio, he just wanted to test them out. If it didn't work, he would let it go. Hidden Cloud Village might be reckless, but they weren't stupid. Relations between the Land of Water and the Land of Lightning had been relatively stable recently, so there was no need to open a new front. Our target this time isn't Hidden Mist Village, so we'll spare you for now. I laughed heartily, effectively letting the trio go. He pointed a thick, dark finger directly at Kagaya Tetsu, but I remember you. Get stronger quickly, because when Hidden Cloud Village strikes your Land of Water, there won't be any room left to escape. Kagaya Tetsu ignored his provocation but suddenly spoke to Killer Bee. Could I take a look at your lyric book? Your rap is quite good. Terumi and Zabuza were confused, wondering how they didn't know Kagaya Tetsu had this hobby. Killer Bee was startled, then pulled out his lyric book in ecstasy. Haha, big brother, I told you someone would appreciate my songs. He laughed triumphantly toward Ai and hastily handed the lyric book to Kagaya Tetsu. After years of creating, he had finally found a kindred spirit. Ai looked speechlessly at his younger brother, too lazy to say more. Since the mission was complete, he might as well let him show off for a bit. Kagaya Tetsu took the lyric book, casually flipped through a few pages, and offered a few compliments. Killer Bee was so happy he almost revealed his octopus tail. From an angle no one else could see, Killer Bee's lyric book was emitting a golden light. Alright, let's exchange ideas in depth when we have a chance in the future. Kagaya Tetsu returned the lyric book to him, sporting a meaningful smile. The golden reward was secured. After disrupting Konoha's plan to control Kusagakure, the Mist Village troop immediately withdrew from the continent and sailed towards the Land of Water. On a large ship, many ninja gathered outside a cabin door, shouting loudly. Tetsu, do you want a wife or not? The Kagaya clan strictly forbids marriage with outsiders, so how can you casually marry a wife? But Kagaya Tetsu, don't worry, my daughter doesn't mind being a concubine. Che-kun, not only do I have a daughter, but my younger sister isn't married yet either. Besides my sister and daughter, I also have an older sister. And my family owns a fleet of ships. Many of the speakers were Hidden Mist Jonin, including those from prominent clans like Yuki, Karataki, and Terumi. They all put aside their pride, hoping their conditions would impress Kagaya Tetsu. In the Battle of Kusagakure, Kagaya Tetsu's performance undeniably surpassed everyone else's, and coupled with the halo of Hidden Mist's youngest Jonin, it stirred many people's thoughts. Once he returned to the Hidden Mist Village, Kagaya Tetsu's status would surely rise even further. The ninja world isn't just about fighting, it's about human relationships. If they could find a way to connect with Kagaya Tetsu, there would be no harm, only benefits. Not to mention, Just based on his face alone, marrying Kagaya Tetsu would definitely be a huge gain. So, everyone began to fiercely compete, hoping to move Kagaya Tetsu with their sincerity. I only have an older sister, but I look pretty good if I put on some makeup myself. Just as a soft-looking ninja finished speaking, the cabin door creaked open, and Kagaya Tetsu walked out. Everyone gasped. The door opened right after that person spoke. Could Kagaya Tetsu not be interested in women? To their surprise, Kagaya Tetsu merely offered an apologetic smile. Thank you all for your kind intentions, but Lord Yagura has summoned me. Please excuse me. He bowed elegantly, jumped directly off the ship, and walked on water towards Yagura Karataki's flagship. The others secretly breathed a sigh of relief. Good, good, at least this kid's orientation wasn't an issue, otherwise it would truly be a problem. Unnoticed, a pair of dark eyes silently watched Kagaya Tetsu's retreating figure. How dare he steal the glory that belongs to me? Kagaya Tora's fists cracked, and his crimson eyes seemed about to drip blood. He had contributed greatly to this battle, not only single-handedly killing hundreds of Konoha ninja but also forcing Uchiha Shisui to retreat. If Shisui hadn't been intimidated by him, how could Kagaya Tetsu be showing off here? Those fools' adulation should have belonged to him. Now Kagaya Tetsu was even called to the flagship by Yagura, which made him even more dissatisfied. Once we return to the village, I'll expose your true colors. Kagaya Tora muttered to himself and silently returned to his cabin. Lord Yagura, no one. Kagaya Tetsu arrived at Yagura Karataki's cabin but saw no one. Che-kun, I'm here. A green head suddenly popped out from behind a pile of thick documents. My apologies, Lord Yagura, I didn't see you just now. Kagaya Tetsu's mouth twitched. This cage-level expert was less than 1.5 meters tall, with a slender and small physique, no wonder he hadn't seen him earlier. Fortunately, Yagura isn't in Shudo, otherwise he'd probably be in high demand, right? Kagaya Tetsu secretly grumbled and quickly walked over. Yagura Karataki poured him a cup of tea and smiled gently. I should be the one apologizing. I should have gone to you myself, but there's simply too much to do. Kagaya Tetsu shook his head. It's my honor to meet Lord Yagura. Unfortunately, we couldn't bring back the Uzumaki clan member on this mission. He claimed to everyone, including Mei Terumi, that when he stole Uzumaki Kana, he accidentally alerted the Kusagakure ninja, who used exploding tags to blow up the hospital, and Uzumaki Kana was instantly incinerated. Anyway, everyone saw that explosion, so there would be no flaws. Yagura waved his hand and gently consoled him. Don't blame yourself, you've done your best. Seizing the Uzumaki clan member wasn't a mandatory option for Kusagakure, disrupting Konoha's upward momentum was the key. From this perspective, Kagaya Tetsu's performance was quite perfect. Che-kun, you truly are a terrifying fellow. He said this sincerely. Since the war began, this was the first time the Hidden Mist village had dealt a heavy blow to Konoha, and it was no exaggeration to say that Kagaya Tetsu played a crucial role. From initiating a propaganda war to weaken Konoha, to decisively requesting the Mizukage to send people to disrupt the battle, and finally killing Inuzuka Sume on the battlefield, obtaining important intelligence about Shisui's eyes, and even calmly escaping from the Ab combo. Each of these accomplishments alone would be remarkable, let alone everything else Kagaya Tetsu did. To be honest, Yagura felt a bit insecure. He had always thought that the fourth Mizukage position belonged to him, but now it seemed that might not be the case. However, Yagura was still happy to see such a monster emerge from a small village. The Mizukage's succession didn't matter, he only hoped the village would become stronger. After praising Kagaya Tetsu for a few sentences, he got to the point. Che-kun, I called you here to discuss what you plan to do next. Kusagakure was in chaos, and Konoha's western front would be unstable for the short term, meaning Konoha's plan to dominate the continent was completely shattered. The continental balance policy, which seemed unbelievable at first, was actually close to being realized. But the re-establishment of balance among all parties meant that the end of the war was even further away. Kagaya Tetsu was prepared and handed a report to Yagura Karataki. Lord Yagura, the continental balance has just been established and is very fragile. I intend to consolidate it and completely extinguish Konoha's ambition for sole dominance. Yagura Karataki took the report and scanned it, his eyes widening immediately. The report had two parts, one related to the upcoming propaganda war, and the other involved an area Yagura had never considered. A moment later, he put down the report and spoke with a complex expression. Che-kun, have you ever thought about getting a bloodline identification or something similar? Kagaya Tetsu was stunned. Why? Yagura opened his mouth, wanting to speak but then stopped, finally shaking his head. Nothing. He was secretly alarmed. How could the savage Kagaya clan produce such a person? If Kagaya Tetsu's heart were cut open, it would probably be even more poisonous than Hanzu's. Once we return to the village, I will immediately present it to the Mizukage-sama for review. Yagura Karataki gripped the report tightly. It was late at night when Kagaya Tetsu left Yagura Karataki's cabin. He returned to his room and nearly jumped in surprise when he opened the door. Mei Terumi, why are you in here? The girl was leaning against his bed, her long, fair legs crossed, arms folded, glaring at him fiercely. A faint floral scent permeated the small cabin, and the dim light outlined Mei Terumi's perfect facial features, but Kagaya Tetsu dared not admire them carefully now. Mei Terumi looked exactly like a wife who had stayed up all night at home, waiting for her cheating husband to return. Why am I in here? Mei Terumi suddenly stood up, a certain part of her trembling, causing Kagaya Tetsu to accidentally activate his auto-aim. If I didn't come, those people would have already tied you up and taken you away. She naturally knew about Kagaya Tetsu being surrounded by those crazy people, and just thinking about it made her angry. I was here first. Kagaya Tetsu gently took her hand, besides Captain, who could tie me up. Mei Terumi's face flushed, and she instinctively turned her head away. Kagaya Tetsu changed the subject, speaking of which, where's Zabuza? I wanted to thank him in person. After withdrawing from Kusagakure, both of them heard about Zabuza's shocking actions at the high-level meeting and were deeply moved. That demon of the bloody mist, with a face as cold as iron, didn't seem as cruel as others thought. Mei Terumi was a bit displeased. Thank him later, have you forgotten something? Kagaya Tetsu paused. Had he forgotten? Mei Terumi suddenly leaned close to his face and said seriously. In Kusagakure, you kissed me without permission. I said I'd get my revenge. Kagaya Tetsu also remembered, there was indeed such a thing. Looking at Mei Terumi's gaze, which seemed to want to devour him, he swallowed. Shouldn't the three ninja prohibitions be somewhat observed? Facing the older sister who was a head taller than him, he was afraid of being crushed. Mei Terumi lightly licked her lips. Don't worry, the three ninja prohibitions only forbid sleeping together, they don't say anything about other things. The floral scent grew stronger, and Kagaya Tetsu felt as if he had fallen into a warm sea. Aside from the final taboo, Mei Terumi used every other means to fiercely exact her revenge. In the dead of night, Kagaya Tetsu crouched in front of his bed, quietly drying the sheets with fire release while looking at his panel. Explorer. Kagaya Tetsu. Chakra Volume. 12.0 plus. Chakra Affinities. Water, Fire, Wind, Lightning, Earth, Yang. Bloodline. Kagaya Shikatsumyaku, Uchiha Bloodline. Kekkei Genkei Abilities. Sharingan 1 Tomo Bone Clone Proficient 10 Finger Piercing Bullet Proficient Dance of the Larch Proficient Early Fern Dance Proficient Dance of Thunder and Fire Proficient. Talents. Malice Perception, Hundredfold Comprehension, Genjutsu Immunity, Sealing Master, Eye Technique Expert, 8 Tails Chakra Trace. Ninjutsu. 3 Body Technique D. Water Release. Hidden Mist Technique D. Water Release. Water Wall B. Water Release. Water Dragon Bullet Technique B. Water Release. Water Blade /C. Bladesmanship. White Fang Blade Technique Beginner. Taijutsu. Kagaya Fighting Style Proficient, 8 Gates Beginner. Special Abilities. Mayfly Technique Beginner, Water Gun Technique Beginner, Thousand Bone Chaotic Rain Proficient. Looking at the panel, his body, slightly fatigued after being troubled for half the night, finally felt relaxed. The battle in Kusagakure was extremely risky, but the rewards were significant, the most important being the golden reward obtained from Killer B. 8 Tails Chakra. Kagaya Tetsu had long been planning to acquire Tailed Beast Chakra. His current chakra volume reached 1. Card. unit, barely meeting cage-level standards, but in this world, the gap between cage-level shinobi could be larger than the difference between humans and dogs. To stand alongside those monsters, this amount of chakra was nowhere near enough. For him, an elite Jonin, to try and challenge a tailed beast was like a little Shota squeezing onto a subway full of older sisters. It was overestimating his own abilities. As a result, Killer Bee gifted him a huge present. Even a trace amount of 8 Tails chakra still gave Kagaya Tetsu's chakra volume a massive boost. He stretched out his right hand, held his breath, and slowly mobilized the immense power within his body. A crimson chakra cloak quickly covered his palm. Kagaya Tetsu felt that one punch from him could easily smash a thick deck. HMPH, if I had secretly mobilized the 8 Tails chakra just now, I wouldn't have been forced into such a sorry state by Mei Terumi. Kagaya Tetsu muttered, and his right hand, as pale as bone, quickly cracked. His skin seemed to be sliced open by invisible blades, revealing pink muscle tissue. He withdrew the 8 Tails chakra, and his skin immediately began to heal, but even with the Kagaya clan's powerful self-healing ability, it took several minutes for his right hand to fully recover. So this is the corrosive nature of tailed beast chakra. He remembered that Jinchuriki would become completely unrecognizable when they entered tailed beast mode, which must be the corrosion caused by the tailed beast assimilating their body. No wonder not everyone can become a Jinchuriki. If they weren't exceptionally gifted and physically strong, even if the tailed beast was successfully sealed, they could easily be drained dry when mobilizing the chakra. Kagaya Tetsu looked at the plus sign next to his chakra volume on the panel, gaining understanding. Like a Jinchuriki, he can now choose to fight using a chakra volume slightly exceeding 1 card, or he can unlock the restriction and directly mobilize the 8 Tails chakra for battle. As long as he doesn't encounter those few monsters, his chakra volume can already be called anime level in the ninja world, allowing him to easily overwhelm enemies. I finally have a way to save my life. Kagaya Tetsu let out a soft breath. Relying on his trace amount of 8 Tails chakra, he estimated that going all out could reach the level of 4 to 5 cards, though the price would be severe physical corrosion. But it was worth it. Although he currently possessed many methods and could deal with the vast majority of enemies, he still lacked that decisive power, and encountering a true cage-level opponent would easily put him at a disadvantage. If he unfortunately encountered a powerhouse among cage-level shinobi like the Ab combo, then his only option was to run immediately. With the 8 Tails chakra, he now possessed a backup energy source, finally allowing him to develop new things. Aside from the 8 Tails chakra, he also managed to get a purple reward from Uchiha Itachi this time. Walking up to the sink, Kagaya Tetsu opened his eyes wide. A pair of blood-red pupils appeared in the mirror, with a single tomo slowly rotating inside. Eye technique expert, that's what Uchiha Itachi dropped. This was a talent reward, allowing his comprehension of eye techniques to far surpass ordinary people, naturally speeding up the evolution of his eyes. When he forced Shisui to use the Mangekyo, he secretly awakened his one-tomo Sharingan. Later, he secretly used his eyes to hypnotize several Konoha captives, making them spread rumors for him on the battlefield. He found this thing truly effective. Most people were defenseless against the Sharingan. It was a shame this wasn't an H-manga world, otherwise he wouldn't even need a hypnosis app, he could just stare and kill indiscriminately. After testing it out for a while, he let his eyes return to normal. I need to find an opportunity later to thoroughly mess with Danzo using these eyes. The Sharingan is practically a Danzo trap. If he used these eyes to set up a scheme, that guy would definitely fall into the pit. However, Kagaya Tetsu currently has no conflict with Root, and his strength doesn't permit it yet, so there's no rush. Besides the gold and purple rewards, he also acquired a few ninjutsu this time, as well as the relatively rare wind and yang chakras. After his strength improved, the detection range of the system map increased to 500 meters, significantly enhancing his sensory abilities. Even if Obito were to kill his way to me right now, holding out for a few minutes shouldn't be a problem, right? Kagaya Tetsu felt a chill thinking of that madman, and he didn't want to wait for death. Dealing with Obito alone would be manageable, but the problem was the group of personified individuals behind him, who together were like a constellation of shining stars among humans. Plus, there was an older single mother on the moon holding a belly full of resentment, ready to descend at any moment to vent her frustrations. It would be difficult for him to handle this situation alone. He absolutely must build his own power base. He must grasp both sides firmly, merely improving his strength is not enough. Next, he plans to further reform the Hidden Mist Village. The continental balance policy was very successful, and Konoha's influence was severely hit. In the short term, it's unlikely that a single power will dominate the continent. Keigaya Tetsu increasingly felt that the Hidden Mist Village had gone down the wrong path before. Instead of learning from Great Britain, they insisted on mimicking the isolationist Great Qing dynasty. The third Mizukage was an old enigma, causing panic within the village and dampening the will to fight. What, is the Mizukage Tower some kind of mafia den that requires this method to maintain rule? Keigaya Tetsu was frustrated with the Hidden Mist's failure to live up to its potential, but for now, he lacked the ability to overthrow the entire village by himself. Or should I just run away from the Hidden Mist Village? A thought suddenly popped into his head, and the more he thought about it, the brighter his eyes shone. Not becoming a missing nin, but using the Hidden Mist Village to conquer a territory, developing and expanding there, and then manipulating the Hidden Mist in turn. Isn't this just being the governor of the East India Company? Keigaya Tetsu murmured to himself, a light bulb seemingly turning on above his head. Crucially, this idea would easily gain the support of the Hidden Mist Village. Owning land on the continent is the ultimate fantasy of every island nation. Unfortunately, the Hidden Mist Village has been weak and incompetent for years, delaying the realization of this ambition. If he could distance himself from the Hidden Mist Village, the risk of directly confronting Obito would also be greatly reduced. It was an idea with 100 benefits and no harm. Since that's the case, let Keigaya Tetsu bear this burden. In the forest of death, a small black insect slowly flew by. Suddenly, a black cloud drifted down from a nearby tree, enveloping it completely and instantly dismembering it into powder. If anyone were present, they would notice that this black cloud quickly and silently dispersed, transforming into countless kikaichu that roamed the forest. Any creature that entered this territory would be immediately detected and swiftly eliminated by them. The root base was located more than 10 meters underground in this area. At this moment, Danzo Shimura sat in his office, his brows tightly furrowed as he looked at the report in his hand. The lighting was dim, and the aging darkness of the ninja world couldn't help but lean closer to clearly read the words on the report. He disliked bright environments. HMPH, attempting to band together to oppose Konoha, are they? He snorted coldly, slamming the report onto the table, feeling a dull ache in his chest. The report stated that the Third Reikage had announced a union with several countries in the northern part of the continent, forming the Northern Ninja Village Treaty Organization, or Northern Alliance for short. Kumogakure and several small ninja villages had signed agreements. They would accept Kumogakure's protection, and in exchange, if Kumogakure were to go to war against other major villages, they would also participate unconditionally. The Third Reikage also declared to the world, saying something like, Konoha should not interfere in the internal affairs of the Land of Hot Springs. The destiny of the Land of Hot Springs should be decided by its own people. Kumogakure is willing to work with all parties to help the Land of Hot Springs regain its independent status and jointly build a beautiful new ninja world with practical measures. Seeing this announcement sent to all villages, even Danzo felt disgusted. Kumogakure not interfering in others' internal affairs. Bah! Even a passing dog, those barbarians would want to pull a few hairs from it. They even dared to send people to kidnap the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki back then. Is that not interfering in internal affairs? Kumogakure was merely trying to take advantage of Konoha's defeat, gather the surrounding small countries into an alliance, and gain an advantage against Konoha. Sunagakure and Iwagakure in the west were also restless. The two countries similarly allied with some surrounding small countries, forming the so-called Allied Nations, claiming to be the Allied forces, and continued to contend with Konoha with several times the previous military strength. At the same time, these countries seemed to have had a breakthrough. Besides increasing manpower on the battlefield, they also started a propaganda war behind the scenes, spreading rumors and leaflets everywhere, constantly slandering Konoha. Although these were just some low-level rumors, far inferior in quality to the previous, the Godfather, and the investigation report on the Uchiha resistance movement, they still gave the current Konoha a headache. Danzo was contemplating countermeasures when his office door was suddenly pushed open with a bang. He was furious and immediately wanted to kill the guard on duty, but he instinctively shut his mouth when he saw who it was. Hiruzen, why are you here? Hiruzen Sarutobi, wearing a Hokage robe, stood before him, casually holding a pipe in his mouth. Danzo secretly thought that something was wrong. Usually, he was the one who pushed open the Hokage's door, but today it was the other way around. That was satisfying. Hiruzen Sarutobi felt secretly pleased and almost couldn't resist running out to push it open again. However, his demeanor as Hokage still restrained him. He walked straight to Danzo, sat down, and said in a deep voice. Danzo, you should have already received the relevant intelligence. The village's situation is very dangerous now. What do you plan to do? Konoha's defeat this time was too devastating. He couldn't even wait for Danzo to come to him. He rushed over to discuss as soon as he received the news. In the Battle of Kusagakure, Konoha suffered a complete defeat, the Kusa Kage was killed, and the land of grass fell into turmoil without a leader. Konoha could no longer occupy Kusagakure by controlling its high-ranking officials. Instead, the Kazekage and Tsuchikage took advantage of the chaos, sending many people to garrison the land of grass. The most disgusting thing was that old Onoki actually teamed up with Rasa to raid the land of hot springs. Although the capital of hot water was saved with the support of Minato and the Uchiha, Konoha still lost more than half of the land of hot springs. The war situation was originally excellent. Hiruzen Sarutobi was even thinking of having Homura Mitokado write a victory declaration. However, Konoha was dealt a heavy blow, suffering not only severe losses but also losing its previous absolute advantage. The most critical issue was the Uchiha. Those rumors did not dissipate with the end of the battle, instead, they intensified, causing widespread panic within the village, which gave the Hokage a severe headache. Danzo calmly took out a top-secret report and handed it to Hiruzen Sarutobi. Root has initially confirmed that the previous movies and pamphlets, as well as the rumors on the Kusagakure battlefield, were all the work of Hidden Mist Village. To be precise, it was Kagaya Tetsu's doing. Danzo's intelligence network was unrivaled in the ninja world, and after some effort, he finally uncovered the mastermind. Hiruzen Sarutobi took it and read it carefully, his heart filled with shock. His impression of Kagaya Tetsu was still from the Land of Hot Springs campaign, where the opponent, a genius of the Kagaya clan, had used minor tricks to give Shisui some trouble, and that was all. If Danzo's intelligence was accurate, it meant his previous assessment of Kagaya Tetsu was greatly mistaken. Danzo pointed to a line on the report and continued. Furthermore, the joint attack on the Land of Hot Springs by the Kazekage and Tsuchikage was very likely suggested by the Mizukage. The Mizukage held us back in the Land of Grass, allowing Sunagakure and Iwagakure to succeed. After listening, a gloomy face appeared in Hiruzen Sarutobi's mind. He didn't have many impressions of the third Mizukage, having only met him a few times when he was young. Later, the third Mizukage implemented the Bloody Mist policy, closing off the country, and even less information about them was available to the outside world. Hidden Mist Village had not participated in the Second Great Ninja War and had a very weak presence in this war. Hiruzen Sarutobi had never taken them seriously. Unexpectedly, they had delivered a severe blow to Konoha from behind this time. Danzo suggested. How about we set a trap, or simply send someone to Hidden Mist Village to kill that brat? Hiruzen Sarutobi raised an eyebrow. You're that concerned about Kagaya Tetsu. Kagaya Tetsu was indeed a genius, but Danzo had been doing underground work for decades and had killed countless geniuses. This was the first time he had shown such concern for a newcomer. Danzo simply grunted, I just think it's better to deal with him sooner rather than later. He didn't voice his deepest thoughts. Kagaya Tetsu instilled a hint of fear in him. In Kagaya Tetsu, he saw a shadow of his younger self, and that guy was likely more powerful than he was at the same age. He wanted to eliminate such a person early to avoid future complications. Unfortunately, Hiruzen Sarutobi vetoed it. There's no rush for now. Hidden Mist Village hasn't fought many battles with us and doesn't intend to invade the mainland en masse. If we completely provoke them, a fight to the death would be detrimental. Facing a not-so-urgent threat, the Hokage always disliked taking risks. It's a pity Tsukumo isn't here. He shook his head and sighed softly. If Tsukumo Hatake were still alive, he could have led a team to retaliate against Hidden Mist Village, and Konoha's pressure would be much less. Danzo lowered his eyelids and said nothing, lost in thought. Hiruzen Sarutobi regained his composure. Danzo, immediately come up with a plan for me. Since the enemy likes to engage in verbal battles through propaganda, we'll just hit back. If it came to a propaganda war, Konoha had never feared anyone, just the will of fire alone was enough for other villages to learn from. Danzo nodded confidently. I've already drafted a plan, and the propaganda war against Hidden Mist will be implemented soon. Also, I've dispatched all of Route to closely monitor the movements of neighboring countries. Kumogakure, Sunagakure, and Iwagakure are starting to rally small countries to form alliances, aren't they? No problem, Konoha just needs to follow suit. Although Konoha suffered a defeat in the Land of Grass, it was far from a crippling blow. Any daimyo who dared to disobey would find the heads of his wife and children on his pillow the next morning. After discussing this matter, Hiruzen Sarutobi continued. I came to see you for another reason. Danzo probably guessed what he was going to say. Come with me to the Uchiha clan compound. Late at night, Uchiha Fugaku returned to his residence, dragging his weary body. He wiped the spittle from his face, feeling that the discussion just now was even more arduous than fighting in the Land of Grass. One side of the discussion was him and Shisui, and the other side was the majority of the Uchiha clan members. The topic of discussion was also very simple. Should they immediately storm the Hokage building and seize Hiruzen Sarutobi's position? As Fugaku expected, after Shisui revealed his Mangekyo Sharingan, the clan members immediately became agitated, and some of the overly excited ones even awakened their Sharingan directly. The Hawk faction was, of course, overjoyed. Even the Dove faction, who had previously insisted on peace, began to waver. In the past, the Dove faction Uchiha rarely displayed their strength, wishing for Konoha to think they were harmless little white rabbits, thereby dispelling others' fears. When others say you have a Mangekyo, you'd better actually have one, and now the Uchiha indeed had one. So many conservatives stopped pretending and even felt that the radicals' approach was not radical enough. Fugaku and Shisui spent a great deal of effort, finally managing to somewhat suppress their rebellious thoughts. But both of them knew that the fire in the clan members' hearts had only weakened, it hadn't been extinguished. When the time came, this fire would reignite with 100 or even 1,000 times the intensity, until it engulfed all of Konoha. Fugaku arrived at his doorstep, heavy-hearted, and the main door suddenly opened. Makoto, with her dignified demeanor, stood at the doorway and quickly told him. Come, follow me inside. Fugaku was startled, suddenly remembering something. Sorry, Makoto, I'm really tired today. Can we do it another time? The two planned to have another child, and today should have been the day to do their homework, but Fugaku was definitely not up to it today. Makoto's face flushed, and she lightly spat. What are you thinking about? Hokage-sama and Elder Danzo have arrived. Fugaku was completely startled awake and hurried to the living room. He saw Hiruzen Sarutobi and Danzo already seated on the sofa, slowly savoring the tea Makoto had brought. Hokage-sama, my apologies. Just now, there were some matters being discussed within the clan. I didn't notice your arrival. Fugaku bowed slightly. Hiruzen Sarutobi waved his hand with a chuckle. We came uninvited, so we should be the ones apologizing. Danzo took a small sip of tea, his eyes lowered, without making any statement. After a few pleasantries, Fugaku spoke. Hokage-sama, do you need me to call Shisui as well? No need to guess, the two of them must have come for Shisui's eyes. The Hokage nodded meaningfully. I appreciate it. Uchiha Shisui hadn't arrived home yet. After receiving the message, he rushed over, kneeling somewhat reservedly before the Hokage and Danzo. Shisui, don't be so nervous. I watched you grow up, and I understand your intentions. Hiruzen Sarutobi played the emotional card first, then Danzo spoke stiffly. Uchiha Shisui, why did you conceal the matter of your Mangekyo Sharingan? Why didn't you report it to the Hokage immediately after returning to the village? Can your eyes manipulate people's minds? A series of aggressive questions. Danzo was clearly looking for trouble. Before returning to Konoha, Minato had already sent a report about Shisui back to Konoha and tried his best to defend him, so Danzo naturally knew everything. But he accompanied the Hokage precisely to say things that the Hokage found inconvenient to say. Hiruzen Sarutobi gently chided Danzo, "Don't be so hasty, don't scare Shisui." He then turned to Shisui and said softly, "Child, don't be afraid. I just need to understand the true situation so we can solve the problem together." Fugaku watched silently, knowing that these old partners were playing good cop, bad cop, but he couldn't say anything. Shisui first glanced at Fugaku, received an affirmative look from him, and then mustered the courage to say, "Both sirs, I did conceal it from the village before, but it wasn't with ulterior motives, I was just worried that the village would fall into crisis because of my eyes." Fugaku had told him how to answer the Hokage's questions, leaving it entirely up to Shisui to decide. After all, Fugaku himself didn't know how to answer this matter. Shisui was not good at lying. After only a few seconds of hesitation, he finally chose to reveal the secret of his eyes completely. He believed that even if others suspected the Uchiha, Hokage-sama would make a fair judgment. After all, this adult was the close friend of Uchiha Kagami. Indeed, Hiruzen Sarutobi gently exhaled a few smoke rings and said in an unconcerned tone, "Shisui, I understand everything about your situation. Don't worry too much, Konoha wouldn't be so narrow-minded as to not tolerate a Mangekyo Sharingan. You are Kagami's descendant, and I trust your character." Hearing the Hokage's statement, the weight in Fugaku and Shisui's hearts finally lifted. The Hokage's tone then changed. "However, the genjutsu of these eyes is too powerful. Even if I don't mind, it's hard to guarantee that there won't be other people with ulterior motives, including those within your Uchiha clan. Therefore, please strictly keep the secret of Koto Amatsukami. Even if someone guesses your ability, you must deny it. Please understand, this is not only for the village but also to protect you." He turned to Fugaku. "I cannot interfere in Uchiha matters. I will have to rely on you to resolve those discordant voices within the clan." Fugaku immediately nodded in agreement, stating that the discordant voices were isolated incidents and that the entire clan would be closely united around Hokage-sama, promoting the will of fire. Listening to the Hokage's earnest persuasion, Shisui was deeply moved. "Hokage-sama, please rest assured, I will definitely listen to you." Even if the Hokage hadn't reminded him, Shisui wouldn't have publicized his ocular jutsu everywhere. The Hokage's words further reassured him. As long as he and the clan head could suppress the Hawk faction, the village wouldn't be wary of his ocular jutsu. "Hokage-sama would not harm me." This was Shisui's thought about this kind elder. Danzo remained silent throughout, just sitting and quietly drinking tea. In Shisui's view, this formidable elder must have also seen his sincerity. After discussing the Sharingan, Shisui specifically brought up another matter. "Hokage-sama, Elder Danzo, I suggest we immediately find a way to eliminate Kagaya Tetsu, otherwise there will be endless troubles." He poured out all his observations about Kagaya Tetsu, which could be summarized in one sentence. "This brat is inherently evil and must be dealt with." The Hokage nodded. "Elder Danzo shares your view, but the village has just suffered a defeat, and the situation on the continent is even more complex. Now is not the time to act rashly. The village needs your Uchiha clan to share more of the burden." Fugaku and Shisui immediately stood up. "We pledge our lives to the will of fire." The three chatted about the war for a few more moments, then the Hokage and Danzo bid farewell and left. Shisui rubbed his large nose, delighted. "Clan head Fugaku, I was so worried, thinking Hokage-sama would misunderstand me. It seems it was unnecessary." Fugaku patted his shoulder and reminded him. "Shisui, the third Hokage is indeed different from the second, but we still need to be cautious of others." He vaguely felt that the Hokage's true thoughts might be different from what he showed. Although Shisui was strong, he was still too young, and because of Uchiha Kagami, he inherently trusted the Hokage lineage. Shisui was startled, thinking he was referring to Danzo, and nodded seriously. "Thank you, clan head, I will keep that in mind." Outside the Uchiha compound, Hiruzen Sarutobi's smile vanished, replaced by a grim expression. Danzo's face was even grimmer than his, and he whispered, "This child must not be allowed to live." Even Danzo broke out in a cold sweat. Uchiha Shisui had actually awakened a dojutsu that could manipulate people's minds. He had never seen such a terrifying ability. If Shisui decided to act one day, they would be completely defenseless. At that point, even if the Uchiha told them to strip naked and leave the village, they would eagerly comply. This guy is even more terrifying than Uchiha Madara. Hiruzen Sarutobi gently clenched his fist, then released it. Danzo, the more critical the situation, the calmer we must be. If you act against him now, whether it succeeds or not, it will inevitably trigger a civil war between the Uchiha and the village. Such a result would be no better. Danzo snorted coldly, then what do you propose? Just let such a huge threat wander around us every day. Hiruzen Sarutobi pondered for a moment, then suddenly asked in return. What do you think of Uchiha Itachi? Kagaya Tetsu was once again invited to the Mizukage's office. As soon as he entered, the supreme ruler of the Hidden Mist village smiled. Che-kun, thanks to you. The Mizukage, who was perceived as terrifying and cruel by the outside world, now unreservedly praised Kagaya Tetsu. He had already listened to Yagura Karataki's detailed report. This was the Hidden Mist village's first great victory since the war began, completely shattering Konoha's plan to end the war in 3 months. Kagaya Tetsu deserved a significant portion of the credit for this outcome. It was all thanks to Mizukage-sama's excellent planning and the successful surprise attack on the land of hot springs that we were able to retreat safely. Mizukage-sama is the son of the Hidden Mist village, your brilliance guided us to victory. Kagaya Tetsu knew that the more successful he was, the more he needed to stay grounded, so he immediately started flattering. If he hadn't felt it would be too exaggerated, he would have raised his hands, tears in his eyes, and jumped up and down in front of the Mizukage, shouting his loyalty. The Mizukage chuckled and continued. There's no need to be so modest. Even a quiet child like Yagura praised you highly. Tell me, what reward do you want? Kagaya Tetsu was well prepared and immediately spoke. Mizukage-sama, my equipment suffered significant wear and tear in this major battle and urgently needs replenishment. Also, as you know, I've always lived in my small courtyard, and recently I've been thinking of building a training ground there to constantly improve myself. Furthermore, I witnessed Konoha's sealing jutsu in Kusagakure and found it quite interesting. I wonder if the village has any related ninjutsu in its reserves. This time, he didn't feign modesty but directly stated his requests. On one hand, he genuinely lacked money and wanted to learn sealing jutsu, not to waste his sealing master talent. On the other hand, it was also to reassure the Mizukage. If you accomplish such a great feat and ask for nothing, then what do you truly want? Just like General Wang Jian of the Qin dynasty, who constantly asked for money from the first emperor when conquering Chu. The first emperor was not angry but felt relieved. Matters that cannot be resolved with material things are the real trouble. Indeed, after listening, the Mizukage waved his hand grandly. Consider it an S-rank mission, with a reward of 1.5 million ryo. As for sealing jutsu, the village doesn't have many in reserve, but I can give you 2. You can go directly to the logistics department to claim them later. The starting reward for an S-rank mission is 1 million ryo, so 1.5 million ryo was quite high, clearly indicating the Mizukage's satisfaction with Kagaya Tetsu's requests. After discussing the rewards, the Mizukage suddenly said, Che-kun, are you interested in joining the Council of Elders? Kagaya Tetsu was momentarily stunned, not expecting the Mizukage to have such an idea. The Council of Elders was equivalent to the village's parliament, similar to Konoha's F4, but with more members. Dozens of the Hidden Mist village's true core figures were among them, including Jonin and various important figures from the Land of Water. Major village decisions were generally made through the Council of Elders. Even becoming a Jonin didn't guarantee entry into the Council of Elders. Mei Terumi, for example, hadn't entered yet. Only the most senior individuals were qualified to become members. Kagaya Tetsu had participated in a few Council of Elders meetings before, but only as a special participant in discussions. Becoming a member of the Council of Elders at 12 years old would definitely be astonishing. He bowed deeply. Thank you, Mizukage-sama, for your cultivation. Having plotted for so long, he could finally formally enter the core of the Hidden Mist, and naturally, he wouldn't miss this opportunity. As for the Mizukage's cultivation of him, Keigaya Tetsu scoffed. He was very clear-headed. In the mind of this clever ruler, there were no subordinates truly worth cultivating, only different tools. The reason he was so certain was that his malice perception was constantly at work. The amiable man in front of him was emitting strong malice towards him. Keigaya Tetsu didn't expect the Mizukage to genuinely like him. It didn't matter, as long as it helped him achieve his goals. Seeing Keigaya Tetsu's loyal demeanor, the Mizukage nodded slightly. The Council of Elders is currently holding a meeting, let's go together. In the Hidden Mist Deliberation Hall, the elders, who were engrossed in heated debate, suddenly saw the door open and immediately sat up straight. They were used to it. The Mizukage would always wait until everyone had argued enough before finally appearing and stating his opinion. With his formidable strength and this inscrutable method of rule, no one in the Hidden Mist village had been able to shake the Mizukage's position to this day. But today, everyone's eyes widened. The Mizukage didn't enter alone, Keigaya Tetsu followed behind him. Even the well-informed Genshi couldn't help but lean his head forward. Everyone, starting today, Keigaya Tetsu is a member of the Council of Elders. The Mizukage announced this major decision unhurriedly, as casually as if he were telling everyone what they would eat today. The crowd immediately erupted. He's only 12. How can he be an elder? Even if Keigaya Tetsu performed a great deed, he shouldn't climb so fast. I strongly suggest Mizukage-sama reconsider. Keigaya Tetsu ignored the voices of the crowd and, following the Mizukage's instructions, walked straight to his seat. Finally, I can enjoy the privilege of sitting in the first 3 rows of meetings. Keigaya Tetsu adjusted his posture, sinking comfortably into the chair. This action made the others even more furious. The Council of Elders represented immense benefits, and the addition of each member involved countless overt and covert struggles. The Mizukage allowing such a young boy to join naturally caused much dissatisfaction. But the Mizukage simply said faintly, "Quiet." Everyone immediately fell silent, no longer speaking. Years of rule, combined with strength not inferior to a tailed beast, gave the Mizukage absolute prestige in the Hidden Mist village. Others could argue as much as they liked, but once he made a decision, not a single word of doubt would be tolerated. This was the moment for Genshi to step in. He quietly said to the Mizukage. Third Mizukage-sama, regarding the matter of outward expansion, everyone agrees, but there is no unified opinion on where to expand. Please make your decision. Keigaya Tetsu had already been briefed on the current situation by the Mizukage on the way here. After Konoha's monopoly was broken, the major inland countries formed an initial balance, where no one could move against anyone else, and the war entered a stalemate. So, the Hidden Mist village planned to expand during this window of opportunity to prepare for the next round of conflict. The radical faction believed they should annex an inland country to completely resolve the Hidden Mist village's awkward situation of being only an island. Of course, that would easily alert the other 4 ninja villages, and if they were jointly beaten by the 4 villages, the Hidden Mist village would be completely finished. The conservative faction, however, believed there were many resource-rich islands around the land of water that could be gradually conquered, suggesting they secure the surrounding islands first. However, the pirate forces around the Hidden Mist village were quite large. The land of water had been suppressing them for many years, but the pirates only grew more numerous. Even if they successfully occupied islands, the pirates would still be a major threat. Neither side could convince the other, and the Mizukage suddenly turned to Keigaya Tetsu. Tetsu, what do you think? The moment he said this, dozens of unfriendly eyes fixed upon Keigaya Tetsu. What are you looking at? Do I have the answer written on my face? Keigaya Tetsu couldn't help but grumble internally. If he hadn't sensed the intense malice coming from the others, he might have thought the Mizukage truly valued his opinion. He secretly cursed the Mizukage for being old and crafty. The argument had reached a deadlock, and the Mizukage didn't want to make a direct conclusion, so he intended to use Keigaya Tetsu, a newcomer to the Council of Elders, as a shield. No matter which side Keigaya Tetsu supported, the fire would first be concentrated on him. As for the Mizukage, he was merely eager to nurture talent and generously giving a newcomer a chance to show off. But he was prepared and didn't panic. Just as he was about to speak, a rough voice suddenly interrupted him. Mizukage-sama, Keigaya Tetsu is just an immature brat. Even if he dares to speak, I wouldn't dare to believe him. Keigaya Tetsu didn't need to look, he knew who had made that statement the moment he heard the tone. The others looked at Keigaya Daisuke in surprise, not expecting him to directly attack Keigaya Tetsu. Everyone knew that Keigaya Tetsu was estranged from the clan because his parents had died mysteriously years ago, but hadn't Keigaya Daisuke always tried to win over Keigaya Tetsu, the genius? Why had he suddenly lost his temper? Seeming to guess everyone's thoughts, Keigaya Daisuke added. Even if he is a Keigaya clan member, I will not show favoritism. He was breathing heavily, his dark, crazed face fixed on Keigaya Tetsu. If looks could kill, Keigaya Tetsu would already be Keigaya-chan. Keigaya Tetsu understood why his clan head's attitude had changed drastically, it was all because of that obedient son. The Battle of Kusagakure was originally a great opportunity for Keigaya Tora to shine and reverse the village's negative view of the Keigaya clan. Instead, Keigaya Tetsu stole all the thunder. Afterward, everyone only praised Keigaya Tetsu, and the Mizukage even allowed him to join the Council of Elders, as if Keigaya Tetsu alone had taken all the credit for the Keigaya clan. In Keigaya Daisuke's view, he had set aside past grievances and been showing goodwill toward Keigaya Tetsu for years, only to raise a Byakugan wolf. How could he not be angry? Since Keigaya Tetsu rejected his goodwill, there was no need for him to shamelessly try to appease him anymore. After finishing his opposition to Keigaya Tetsu, Keigaya Daisuke looked at the Mizukage. Mizukage-sama, I stand by what I said. While the inland countries are weak, why don't we directly attack Konoha and take a bite out of them? Our Keigaya clan is willing to lead the charge. Thinking about the Keigaya clan securing Konoha's rich lands for the land of water, Keigaya Daisuke became extremely excited. If they could achieve such merit, Keigaya Tetsu would definitely come begging on his knees to rejoin the clan. As a representative of the radical faction, his words immediately drew approval. At this moment, a clear, calm, and steady voice spoke leisurely. It doesn't matter if the Keigaya clan dies leading the charge, but does Lord Daisuke intend to drag everyone else down with you? Keigaya Daisuke's eyebrows shot up, ready to curse, but seeing the speaker, he shut his mouth and merely snorted coldly. The speaker was wearing an ordinary hidden mist battle uniform, yet his elegant nobility was hard to conceal. It was the young clan head of the Hazuka clan, Hozuki Mangetsu. No one dared to ignore this young man. Of the first generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist, excluding Suikazan Fuguki, who was missing and whose fate was unknown, 6 of the ninja swords were currently in Hozuki Mangetsu's hands. The reason was simple. Hozuki Mangetsu was the only person who could skillfully use all 7 blades, and he possessed the only scroll capable of summoning the 7 ninja swords. Only Fuguki's great sword, Samahata, could not be summoned for unknown reasons. Before the candidates for the second generation of the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist were chosen, Hozuki Mangetsu was the temporary custodian of the 6 ninja swords. No one objected, not even the Mizukage, because the 7 ninja swords were forged during the reign of the second Mizukage, Hazuka Genjutsu, and were originally the private property of the Hazuka clan. Furthermore, Hozuki Mangetsu was politically reliable and one of the few cage-level experts in Hidden Mist Village, making him a reasonable choice to guard the swords. It was also due to Hozuki Mangetsu's persistence that the conservative faction, despite its small numbers, hadn't lost ground yet. Interrupting Keigaya Daisuke, Hozuki Mangetsu calmly and slowly presented his suggestion. The continental balance has indeed formed, and it is true that Hidden Mist Village should seize this opportunity to strike. The problem is that this balance is too fragile. Ask yourselves, if we rashly attack Konoha, even if we manage to occupy some land, are we truly prepared to face the Hokage's wrath? If that triggers a siege by the 4 village allied forces, who can handle it? He slowly scanned the crowd, and seeing no one respond, he continued. Therefore, I still maintain that we should first subdue the surrounding islands and attack the mainland only after our strength has grown. As for the pirate menace, although troublesome, it must surely be much easier to deal with than the other 4 great ninja villages, right? The representatives of the radical and moderate factions restated their opinions in front of the Mizukage, yet the Mizukage still showed no intention of deciding, saying softly. Everyone, I recall that I intended for Che-kun to speak, didn't I? You all seem a little too eager. Everyone heard the displeasure in his tone and quickly shut their mouths. Kagaya Tetsu chuckled. You all insist on voicing your opinions even at the risk of disobeying the Mizukage-sama. It seems the entire hall is filled with loyal subjects, not treacherous ministers. Your differing ideas merely stem from your differing positions. This simple sentence was a sweeping generalization. Aside from the Mizukage and Genshi, who nodded approvingly, everyone else, including Kagaya Daisuke and Hozuki Mangetsu, felt like they had been hit by a sneak attack. This was veiled criticism masquerading as praise, implying that everyone else disregarded the Mizukage's opinion and only cared about their own incessant chatter, while only Kagaya Tetsu kept the Mizukage's words firmly in mind. Furthermore, saying there were no treacherous ministers in the hall ostensibly praised their selflessness, but actually made the elders seem more hypocritical, implying that the only true loyal subject was the obedient Kagaya Tetsu. Those who had previously treated Kagaya Tetsu as a brat finally realized how formidable this guy was and slightly toned down their contempt. Seeing that everyone had quieted down, Kagaya Tetsu then spoke. Under the Mizukage-sama's guidance and with Lord Genshi's support, I actively promoted the continental balance policy, which has now completely crushed Konoha's ambition to dominate the continent and achieved positive results. Hearing this, the Mizukage's narrowed eyes curved even more, and even Genshi couldn't help but smile. Everyone looked sideways. Showing off his achievements while also flattering the leaders until they're comfortable, you can do that. This was the thought in many people's minds at that moment. After all, the ninja world is a place where brute force reigns supreme, not to mention the hidden mist village's bunch of killing enthusiasts, whose flattery skills were 10 times worse than Konoha's. They had never witnessed such a shameless method of sucking up. Kagaya Tetsu gave a boost to the two main leaders before getting to the main topic. Therefore, I completely agree with Hidden Mist Village's grand strategy of external expansion, but I believe that neither directly annexing an inland country nor slowly occupying the surrounding islands is appropriate. As for directly attacking Konoha, that is even stupider. Only brainless people would have such an idea. The most suitable course is to seize the opportunity to occupy the southern land of Hot Water region and establish a Hidden Mist Village separatist regime. He had always been fixated on the land of hot springs. That territory could be called the land of abundance of the ninja world, with thousands of miles of fertile land. Furthermore, Yugakure ninja were weak. After the capital of Hot Water was occupied by Konoha, most ninja chose to become Imperial Cooperation Army, and only a small number fled to the south, where they were vulnerable. Of course, the most important thing was that the southern land of Hot Water perfectly fit his plan to become the governor of the East India Company. He planned to use it as his base for true independence, autonomy, and expansion. As soon as he said this, everyone's eyes immediately lit up. After the Battle of Kusagakure, Konoha lost control over half of the land of Hot Springs territory. The capital of Hot Water in the north was still in Konoha's hands, but the southern territory had fallen into chaos, with various village forces mixed together, including the remaining Yugakure forces. However, the southern land of Hot Water was fertile, had many hot springs, and, crucially, possessed many natural harbors. It was practically Hidden Mist Village's dream location. If they could truly occupy it, it might become Hidden Mist Village's main base for influencing the mainland. Kagaya Daisuke, having been silently provoked by Kagaya Tetsu, immediately counterattacked. Kagaya Tetsu, do you think you're the only smart one? My son and I thought of this long ago. He made that statement up on the spot. He and Kagaya Tora had always planned to strike Konoha directly and hadn't considered the land of hot springs at all. But the northern part of the land of hot springs is still held by Konoha, and it's close to the Northern Alliance led by Hidden Cloud Village. You could say it's exposed on all sides. The southern land of Hot Water is also right next to Konoha. You were just worried about provoking the Hokage's counterattack, but if we occupy the south, our enemies will be Konoha and the Northern Alliance. Are you sure we can handle that? Kagaya Daisuke thought he had found a loophole and was quite pleased with himself for using Kagaya Tetsu's own logic against him. Who said the Kagaya clan was brainless? Most of the time, they were incredibly smart. Unexpectedly, Kagaya Tetsu chuckled and shook his head. Precisely because the southern land of Hot Water is in that position, it is the most suitable location. He stood up directly and threw out his viewpoint with a surge of energy in his voice. I have something to say, please listen carefully. First, the southern land of hot water borders Konoha closely. Our occupation will certainly raise Konoha's alarm and countermeasures, but based on my understanding of the third Hokage, he won't fight us to the death unless we directly infringe upon Konoha's territory. The southern land of hot water currently belongs neither to Konoha nor is it within Konoha's sphere of influence. It is perfectly stuck on the Hokage's on that point of balance. Many people nodded silently, feeling that Kagaya Tetsu was correct. They weren't fools either. Having clashed with Konoha for so many years, they had long figured out that the third Hokage was a man who prioritized stability. As long as his core interests were not involved, he usually wouldn't completely tear the relationship apart. At this point, Kagaya Tetsu introduced the second key point. Why do I say that Hidden Mist Village's separatist regime in the southern land of hot water can exist? The presence of multiple factions there is the answer. He pointed to the massive ninja world map on the wall behind him. Precisely because it is a mixed bag of forces, with various factions vying for power, it is convenient for us to seize the opportunity and establish a base of operations. Neither Konoha, the Northern Alliance, nor any other country has the strength to completely occupy the land of hot springs, and they will all strive to prevent another country from fully occupying it. Hidden Mist Village's strength in the ninja world, well, everyone knows the score. Everyone looks down on us, but this is precisely our advantage. If we only occupy the southern land of hot water, it won't cause Konoha too much loss of face, nor will it make surrounding countries feel greatly threatened. If we use a few tricks to win over the Northern Alliance, Hidden Cloud Village might even be happy to see it happen, perhaps even helping us fight Konoha. Finally, he clenched his right fist and swung it heavily in the air. Gentlemen, once we successfully control the southern land of hot water, the glory belonging to Hidden Mist Village will surely arrive soon. The soon I speak of is not unreachable empty rhetoric, but a ship whose mast breaks the horizon, a blazing sun leaping over the mountain peak, a baby about to be born. Rousing applause suddenly erupted. The vast majority of people were moved by Kagaya Tetsu's words and quickly approved of his strategy after brief consideration. Some older elders were teary-eyed. They had thought Hidden Mist Village had no successor, that it would rot away in endless internal strife, and eventually slink out of this great war. But seeing Kagaya Tetsu, they regained hope. Even Hozuki Mangetsu clapped lightly, showing his approval. He still hated Kagaya Tetsu and still suspected Kagaya Tetsu of killing his older brother, but he was a village-centric man. As long as it benefited the village, he could agree even with the words of an enemy. Only Kagaya Daisuke and a few members of the extreme faction wore expressions of deep reluctance. Kagaya Tetsu speaks easily. I want to ask, when we attack the southern land of hot water, how do we ensure Konoha and Kumogakure won't interfere? Kagaya Daisuke racked his brains and finally raised a pointed question, causing many people to look thoughtful again. At this moment, the Mizukage finally spoke, holding up the report in his hand. This is the report Che-kun wrote earlier. It contains 2 strategies targeting Konoha and Kumogakure. Yagura praised it highly, and I also find merit in it. You may all take a look. Kagaya Daisuke's heart sank. Yagura Karataki was the third Mizukage's most favored successor. Although he was currently away on a mission and not present, if even he approved, Kagaya Tetsu's idea was basically settled. The report quickly circulated among the crowd, eliciting bursts of astonishment. This is too vicious. It's absolutely unscrupulous and utterly shameless, but I like it very much. Kagaya Tetsu's bones aren't black, are they? Hiss, he's even more shameless than me. I approve of this kid. The elders' hands trembled slightly in excitement. Even Hozuki Mangetsu, who was usually indifferent, couldn't help but read every word carefully. If my older brother really was harmed by this brat, it wouldn't be an injustice. He wiped his brow with a snowy white handkerchief, mumbling silently to himself. After everyone had finished reading, the Mizukage spoke. Judging by your expressions, you must strongly approve of Che-kun's plan. I always like to hear the collective opinion, so since that's the case, I will approve Kagaya Tetsu's operation. The Mizukage once again used his signature move. He appeared not to interfere with anyone's thoughts, but in fact, from the moment he brought Kagaya Tetsu in, every step was meant to guide them toward his own goal. He smiled slightly at Kagaya Tetsu, who was bowing to him, then glanced at some of the elders who were still unconvinced. He swiftly drew his short sword and slashed quickly at the corner of the table. Clack! The wooden table corner rolled onto the floor, making the hair stand up on many people's necks. Anyone who speaks of defeat again will end up like this table. Under the expectant gazes of the crowd, Keigaya Tetsu walked out of the main entrance with his head held high. After his impassioned speech, the Hidden Mist High Command indeed approved his plan, marking the completion of the first step. However, there were still many obstacles separating him from becoming the Governor-General of the East Indies. No matter how well the PowerPoint promises were drawn up, without real capability, things would eventually blow up. Now it depended on whether the two plans he prepared earlier could be realized. If successful, taking control of the southern land of hot water would be a natural progression. He walked and pondered, planning to go collect his sealing jutsu, when he was suddenly blocked by a group of people. Keigaya Tetsu, you've gone too far. The fierce-looking Keigaya Tora stood before him, his chest nearly touching Keigaya Tetsu's head, followed by 7 or 8 younger members of the Keigaya clan. He was easily over a meter taller than Keigaya Tetsu, and coupled with the equally tall subordinates behind him, Keigaya Tetsu instantly felt surrounded by several massive trees. He put his hands in his pockets, raised his head, and smiled. Ah, Tora. What's the matter? He was not at all surprised by their appearance. He had seen the purple question marks via the system map a few minutes earlier. Right now, Keigaya Tora's head was emitting a faint purple glow. Keigaya Tora was furious. You have the nerve to ask me what's wrong. The Keigaya clan risked life and limb in this battle, sacrificing several clansmen. Yet, not only did you hog all the glory, but you even publicly opposed my father's opinion in the Council of Elders. You clearly don't respect our clan at all. His body, like that of a young calf, trembled violently, clearly indicating he was in a state of rage. You must immediately clarify the facts here, that you stole the merits that rightfully belonged to us, and then give up that ill-gotten elder position. Keigaya Tora's resentment, which had been building since Kirigakure, was now on the verge of exploding. He couldn't understand why, despite him and the other clansmen exerting so much effort, even scaring Shisui away, all the focus was centered on Keigaya Tetsu. This guy even joined the Council of Elders, the Council of Elders. Only Keigaya Daisuke from the Keigaya clan was in it. Keigaya Tora wouldn't even dare to dream of it. That elder position should belong to him. Keigaya Tetsu gently wiped the spittle off his face with his finger, looked at the growing crowd of onlookers, and spread his hands. Are you sure you want to discuss these things in the middle of the street? Keigaya Tora sneered. What, are you feeling guilty? He wanted everyone to witness this scene, forcing Keigaya Tetsu to personally admit that he was the main force in the Battle of Kirigakure, and to yield the Council of Elders position to him. Even if Keigaya Tetsu refused, it didn't matter. The Hidden Mist village always respected strength, and the Keigaya clan was especially martial. As a Jonin, and with several fierce, wolf-like brothers behind him, he was absolutely certain he could make this brat submit. Keigaya Tetsu shook his head and sighed softly. Since that's the case, let me ask you, how do you know I opposed your father during the Council of Elders meeting? Keigaya Tora was startled, completely unprepared for Keigaya Tetsu to focus on this point. Those who attended the Council of Elders were core members of the Hidden Mist, and they naturally had various methods to secretly gather information and relay it promptly. Take the Keigaya clan, for example, several clansmen were responsible for maintaining order during every Council of Elders meeting, so it wasn't hard for Keigaya Tora to get the news ahead of time. But such things were understood without being spoken aloud. After all, eavesdropping on a confidential meeting was theoretically a serious crime in any village, and Keigaya Tora, no matter how foolish, wouldn't admit it. Don't worry about that. Just tell me, do you admit to stealing my merits? He and his subordinates all placed their hands on their bone blades, ready to take down the brat at any moment. Keigaya Tetsu held up 2 fingers and nodded. I see. First, you admit that you eavesdropped on a confidential meeting personally chaired by the Mizukage-sama. Second, my elder position was personally granted by the Mizukage-sama. You dare to call it ill-gotten, implying that the Mizukage-sama is the source of that impropriety. Cold sweat instantly broke out on Keigaya Tora's back. His intelligence gathering had been too rushed. He only knew Kagaya Tetsu had become an elder and assumed he had tricked his way into the position through smooth talk, unaware that it was personally conferred by the Mizukage. Even the fearless Kagaya ninja wouldn't dare publicly utter words disrespectful to the Mizukage. Kagaya Tora quickly explained. I had no intention of slandering the Mizukage-sama. The moment his voice fell silent, he heard Kagaya Tetsu's cold voice. These two crimes are sufficient proof of your disloyalty. Boom. A heart-pounding sound rang out, originating from the bone blade Kagaya Tetsu instantly drew. Too bad I don't have a plasma gun. It's almost, but not quite, right. Kagaya Tetsu curled his lips. Fire and lightning were already wrapped around the blade tip, emitting a buzzing sound saturated with the aura of death. Lord Tora, hide quickly. Someone behind him hastily pulled Kagaya Tora back, but it was already too late. Dance of thunder and fire. Puchi. Puchi. With two soft sounds, Kagaya Tora and the subordinate who pulled him both simultaneously suffered horrifying, bone-deep wounds across their chests. The blood that should have gushed out was evaporated by the heat from the lightning and fire, releasing wisps of white steam. Kagaya Tora was terrified. The fear even made him temporarily forget the pain, which only struck him violently a few seconds later. Fortunately, he retreated quickly and was pulled by someone. Thanks to the Kagaya's powerful physique, his life was not in danger, but the subordinate behind him was not so lucky. That guy's chest was wide open, having received the same treatment as a certain famous prime minister. The others wanted to rush up and teach Kagaya Tetsu a lesson, but the memory of that previous strike made instinctive fear caused them to step back. To be honest, they didn't really understand Kagaya Tetsu's strength, nor had they fought alongside him in Kusagakure. They only knew he was a genius, but they hadn't truly taken him seriously. Witnessing it now, they finally realized the extent of Kagaya Tetsu's growth. The hundreds of onlookers were also frightened and retreated, but seeing that Kagaya Tetsu made no further moves after calmly delivering the strike, they cautiously gathered around again. To be able to watch the Hidden Mist's #1 genius strike at close range, especially against a fellow clan member, was truly worth dying for. However, many people also began to whisper and discuss, quietly questioning whether Kagaya Tetsu was too cruel. Although no one liked the Kagaya clan, and Kagaya Tora usually did things that made him universally despised, most people in this world still couldn't accept internal clan violence. Filial sons excluded. Kagaya Tetsu had anticipated this, which was why he intentionally held back just now, refraining from sending Kagaya Tora off with a single strike. He was an expert in public opinion warfare, there was no way he would fall into a public relations trap. Kagaya Tetsu displayed a devilish smile and slowly walked up to Kagaya Tora. What are you trying to do? Kagaya Tora retreated continuously with the support of his subordinate, his courage almost completely shattered. Kagaya Tetsu said softly. Lord Tora, you claim you scared Uchiha Shisui away on the battlefield, but the version I heard wasn't quite like that. Many people say that Uchiha Shisui completely overwhelmed you, and you surrendered and begged for your life. He took pity on you and only took a piece of your skull as a trophy. Before he finished speaking, many voices suddenly erupted from the crowd. That's right, I heard the same thing. It's true. My wife's brother's neighbor's son's cousin was there and saw it with his own eyes. Hey, the young Kagaya clan head must have been humiliated, which is why he's so desperate to regain face by targeting Kagaya Tetsu. The crowd's chatter grew louder. Those who hadn't believed it became suspicious, and the whispers turned into open mockery. Kagaya Tora's expression grew uglier and uglier. I didn't. That's slander. He desperately defended himself, but his voice was quickly drowned out. Seeing that the timing was right, Kagaya Tetsu offered his suggestion. Lord Tora, how about this? You split open your scalp in front of everyone. If we look, won't it be obvious? Kagaya Tora's throat felt like it was stuck with a fishbone, and he stammered for a long time, unable to speak. The bones and skin of the Kagaya clan possess powerful regenerative abilities, but this ability is, of course, not infinite. For example, the skull is difficult to regenerate once damaged, and even if it recovers completely, it takes a long time. Therefore, Kagaya clan members can fight with bones from all over their body, but not with the skull. It has only been a few days since the Battle of Kusagakure, and if Shisui had indeed taken a piece of Kagaya Tora's skull, clues would definitely be discovered. But exposing the skull directly by peeling back the scalp was something even Kagaya Tora found too extreme. The surrounding doubts grew louder, and his subordinates behind him were all advising him not to act rashly. Kagaya Tetsu's alluring voice came again. Lord Tora, the skull is the pride of our clan. If you can prove your innocence, I will immediately yield the elder position to you and admit that your contributions are greater than mine. How about it? He seized on something that Kagaya clan members cared about deeply. Precisely because the skull is difficult to recover, Kagaya clan members take pride in an undamaged or unblemished pure skull, using it to prove their strength. It has the style of a certain dark empire. Legend has it that in the distant Sengoku period, the Kagaya clan would carefully preserve the skulls of the deceased and display them in their homes. Enemies would also seize the skulls of Kagaya warriors as military achievements. Although this barbaric tradition has almost disappeared, the pride etched into the Kagaya genes has not faded. Kagaya Tora is also a person who cares extremely about his reputation, and Kagaya Tetsu using this matter to his advantage hit him right where it hurt. Kagaya Tora's blood-red eyes suddenly widened. Good. He knew perfectly well that he was no match for this brat, but as the proud young clan head of the Kagaya, being slandered in front of everyone would be more unbearable than death. Kagaya Tetsu proposed this foolish suggestion, and he was even quite pleased. He was absolutely certain that Shisui hadn't taken his skull. He would soon be able to prove his innocence and make Kagaya Tetsu embarrass himself publicly. With a whoosh, Kagaya Tora directly placed his bone blade on his scalp, aimed accurately, and cut fiercely. Hiss! The people around him simultaneously gasped, and his subordinates behind him were dumbfounded, yet dared not step forward to stop their boss's actions. Their boss valued face more than life itself. If they dared to stop him, they would probably be reporting to the Pure Land immediately. Seeing the bloody scalp, Kagaya Tetsu secretly commented. He has a bit of the demeanor of an old Indian chief. The pale white skull cap was displayed before everyone, and Kagaya Tora laughed wildly. See, I told you I was framed. I never surrendered to Uchiha Shisui. Unexpectedly, Kagaya Tetsu clicked his tongue lightly and shook his head, saying, that won't do. Who knows if that skull of yours is fake? Everyone knows that our clan is best at playing with bones. If Shisui clearly took a piece of your bone, and you replaced it with bones from pigs, cattle, or sheep, it would be difficult to spot the flaw. As soon as these words came out, another wave of agreement rose from the crowd. Kagaya Tora glared fiercely at the bystanders, wanting to know who had been echoing Kagaya Tetsu, but unfortunately, he couldn't find anyone. He widened his eyes and angrily shouted. Your bones are the ones from pigs, cattle, and sheep. He would never allow Kagaya Tetsu to mock him like this, so Kagaya Tora decided to prove himself completely. Crack! A bone-chilling crunch sounded as Kagaya Tora activated the osteocytes in his skull, and a large piece of his frontal bone fell off in response. At this moment, he was like a house without a roof, revealing a mass of red and white matter inside his head. What more do you have to say? What more do you have to say? Kagaya Tora carefully held the large piece of skull in his hands, trembling as he showed it to everyone. His brain was exposed, his nerves severely damaged, and scarlet blood seeped from his facial features. His senses were extremely chaotic, and he couldn't even clearly see Kagaya Tetsu standing in front of him. But that piece of skull was pure white and smooth, with no signs of splicing. It was indeed original. Kagaya Tetsu heavily punched him in the chest. Lord Tora, I believe you. You were definitely not defeated by Shisui. Kagaya Tora had already suffered a knife wound, and now his head was severely injured. He was already on his last breath. With Kagaya Tetsu's neither light nor heavy punch, he coughed up a mouthful of blood, his eyes rolled back, and he fell backward. Lord Tora, don't faint. I'll give you the elder position right away. Kagaya Tetsu quickly bent down, pretending to help him up. But Kagaya Tora's body was already harder than his bones. Seeing this, Kagaya Tetsu wailed loudly. Tora! 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 Alas, Kagaya Tora! What sorrow, Kagaya Tora! What a pity, Kagaya Tora! Kagaya Tetsu, like Ba Sao who had lost Feng Shao, vigorously wiped away non-existent tears. He was already laughing inwardly. Ever since Kagaya Tora decided to become his enemy, this guy had paved his own path to death. But Kagaya Tetsu had always been a self-respecting person, trying to avoid killing fellow clansmen. So he used a small trick to make Kagaya Tora commit suicide. Now everyone saw that it was entirely Kagaya Tora's own subjective will. Even if many bystanders knew he used deceit to kill Kagaya Tora, they dared not say anything. What a joke, everyone was just watching the show. Who would be idle enough to dare criticize a devil like Kagaya Tetsu? Fortunately, all Kagaya clan members are warriors with 9 intelligence. If their intelligence had been even a little higher, Kagaya Tetsu's plan would not have succeeded. Dad, Mom, I've collected a little interest for you. Kagaya Tetsu silently murmured in his heart, gently placing his hand on Kagaya Tora's head. To others, he seemed to be regretting the loss of a comrade, but only Kagaya Tetsu heard the system prompt. You touched Kagaya Tora's skull, receiving a reward, osteocyte reinforcement. Another talent reward. The Kagaya clan can control bone growth and change, essentially manipulating osteocytes. After gaining this talent, Kagaya Tetsu felt a significant improvement in the strength and regeneration speed of his osteocytes. Now, if he were to use 1000 bone chaotic rain, the 1000 in its name would no longer be a mere figure of speech. At this moment, he also felt his bone clones return to his body. That's right, those who had mingled in the crowd and loudly fanned the flames were precisely his bone clones. They had long transformed into ordinary citizens, easily blending into the crowd using the mayfly technique, pushing Kagaya Tora step by step into the abyss. You can leave. Kagaya Tetsu glanced at the few trembling clan members, casually waving his hand. He had no need to act against these irrelevant people now. Just then, a sorrowful cry came. Son. A tall, muscular figure stumbled over. It was Kagaya Daisuke. This man, who had killed countless and was fierce and resolute, seemed to have aged decades in an instant. He knelt with a thud beside his son's corpse, his face ashen. He had just received a report from his subordinates, sensed that something terrible had happened, and rushed over immediately, but it was still too late. Kill him. Kagaya Daisuke roared his command. The dozen or so guards he brought, along with a few of Kagaya Tora's subordinates, immediately surrounded Kagaya Tetsu, ready to tear him apart alive in the next second. I can't win, but escaping isn't a problem. Kagaya Tetsu calmly assessed the current situation. Unexpectedly, an aged and authoritative voice came. Clan head Daisuke, please calm down. Everyone looked over, only to see Motoi rushing over, accompanied by a visibly anxious Mei Terumi. Mei Terumi had just gone to find Kagaya Tetsu when she suddenly heard about this incident, so she immediately pulled Motoi to help. Kagaya Daisuke's gaze was fixed on Kagaya Tetsu, drops of fresh blood dripping from his bitten lips. He killed my son in public, how can I be calm? If it weren't for his apprehension of Motoi, he would have already attacked Kagaya Tetsu. Mei Terumi immediately retorted, it must be your son who was at fault first. How could Tetsu kill indiscriminately? She was fierce, like a mother beast protecting her young. Motoi also sighed helplessly and asked Kagaya Tetsu. Tetsu, what exactly happened? Kagaya Tetsu first pulled Mei Terumi behind him, then slowly explained. Tora's death, I bear responsibility, but he was indeed not killed by me. He recounted the events from beginning to end, and the bystanders who had not yet dispersed also confirmed his account, making Kagaya Daisuke's face even uglier. This idiotic son, who completely failed to inherit his intelligence, was actually easily killed by Kagaya Tetsu's words. Kagaya Tetsu looked at Kagaya Daisuke without fear and continued. By the way, clan head Daisuke, let me remind you that it was Kagaya Tora who first stole confidential meeting information and then slandered me, a hidden mist elder, which led to all these incidents. Kagaya Tora doing these things, I don't really care, but I cannot allow him to defy the rules set by the Mizukage-sama. You know, I have many flaws, but my loyalty to Mizukage-sama is unwavering. Speaking of which, Kagaya Tora's actions were enough for a death sentence, but I always considered our clan's kinship and gave him a chance to prove himself. Who knew he would remain stubborn and ultimately kill himself? Kagaya Tetsu directly brought up the Mizukage. That old geezer had always used him, so it was a good time to use him back. Anyway, He must be happy to see internal strife within the Kagaya, right? Hearing Kagaya Tetsu escalate the matter and invoke the Mizukage's name, Kagaya Daisuke's momentum immediately weakened a few points. Kagaya Tetsu was not wrong, his son's actions could be considered major or minor, but if thoroughly investigated, he, as the father, would also be implicated. Moreover, the Mizukage had actually made his stance clear. The fact that the Anbu, spread throughout the village, had not yet appeared since the incident, was enough to explain the problem. Under such circumstances, what more could Kagaya Daisuke do? Motoi seized the opportunity to speak. In my opinion, this incident was an accident. While it is regrettable that Tora died tragically in the street, he also preserved his reputation. I will report to Mizukage-sama to have him honorably buried, and the matters of eavesdropping on confidential information and insulting an elder will no longer be pursued. As for Kagaya Tetsu, he ignored Mai Terumi, who was desperately winking at him, and merely gave the white-haired youth a faint glance. Getting into a dispute with a fellow ninja in the street and failing to control it, resulting in a death, will be punished by the cancellation of 1 year's salary. The Hidden Mist Village's salary was not much to begin with, and at Kagaya Tetsu's level, those meager earnings were completely insignificant. Everyone could see that Motoi's favoritism was blatant and undisguised. Kagaya Daisuke had nothing to say. His son had indeed committed a crime and had indeed essentially committed suicide. Motoi being able to clear him and his son of involvement was already good enough. He bowed slightly to Motoi, then gave Kagaya Tetsu one last look, said nothing, and left with his people. I didn't expect our country's propaganda war capabilities to have reached this level. Hiruzen's face lit up as he looked at the materials in his hand. After setting the plan for the propaganda war counterattack with Danzo and Udatane Kaharu, who was in charge of newspaper distribution, went all out. One worked in the shadows, the other openly, immediately throwing themselves into the propaganda war. To deal with the Northern Alliance, which had a better economic standing and was centered around Hidden Cloud Village, Konoha quickly produced several movies. Themes included the Gold and Silver Brothers Rebellion and the kidnapping of Kushina incident from back then. The plots vigorously depicted Hidden Cloud Village's barbarity and cruelty, while highlighting Konoha's righteousness and glory as the beacon of the ninja world, calling on countries in the Northern Alliance to break away from Hidden Cloud and embrace Konoha. To deal with Sunagakure and Iwagakure, two poor allies, Konoha produced a batch of cheap comics, novels, and flyers. These were distributed by merchant caravans to various villages in allied countries, promoting the authoritarian rule of Onoki and Rasa, and calling on those villages to resist and join the Free Konoha. To deal with smaller surrounding countries like the Land of Grass, Konoha played the emotional card. News photos like, Konoha Ninja bravely rescues 7 kittens from a fire, Konoha Ninja delivers soldier pills to local villagers, and Konoha Ninja interacts closely with children in the capital of hot water, circulated widely, emphasizing the Konoha squad's approachability and kindness to reduce the resistance of these smaller countries. As for Hidden Mist Village, the mastermind behind the previous propaganda war, Konoha launched a fierce attack. They heavily publicized the second Mizukage's succession dispute from back then, using every means to spread unofficial histories of the third Mizukage usurping power, even claiming that the third Mizukage secretly had an affair with the second Mizukage's 80-year-old mother to gain power, fabricating a detailed and convincing story. After this series of attacks, chaos immediately erupted within the Northern Alliance and allied countries, and the surrounding small countries once again began to praise Konoha. As for Hidden Mist Village, because it was difficult to infiltrate and gather intelligence, the effect was temporarily unclear. In any case, Konoha's pressure was significantly reduced, and the ninja world's situation temporarily stabilized. However, it could only achieve stability. Konoha was severely weakened, and all countries were overwhelmed by the propaganda war. No one had the ability to launch an offensive. The Third Great Ninja War officially entered a ceasefire period. If it weren't for the fact that the countries hadn't officially signed a peace treaty, it wouldn't be an exaggeration to say the war was over. What a pity. Thinking of how Konoha had almost achieved a complete victory, Hiruzen was heartbroken. It was all those ninja clans who loved to bicker. If only they had been a little more united and used the time they spent causing trouble for profit to fight, Konoha would have been the ultimate winner long ago. Let them bicker, until Minato runs out of supplies on the front lines and loses the battle. Let the front lines fall into chaos and destroy the land of fire, that'll show them. Alone in his office, Hiruzen could finally temporarily disregard his image and freely complain about those disobedient individuals. Thump, thump, thump. A gentle knock on the door sounded, and Hiruzen suddenly remembered something, immediately sitting up straight. Please come in. He had already put on a gentle and amiable smile. A small, black-haired boy entered. The two tear stains on his face gave him a maturity beyond his peers, and he was indeed more mature than many adults. However, he was only 4 years old after all, and it was his first time coming to the Hokage office alone, so he was inevitably nervous. Hokage-sama, hello. Uchiha Itachi bowed stiffly. Hiruzen immediately went to greet him, gently patting his head. Itachi, don't be scared. Just pretend you're visiting your neighbor's grandpa. The authoritative Hokage lowered his voice to a whisper, every wrinkle on his face radiating warmth. Uchiha Itachi was someone he had specifically invited. Hiruzen told Fugaku that Itachi was an exceptionally talented, intelligent, and perceptive child, and would undoubtedly be the next Uchiha clan head. Therefore, he wanted to have a private chat with Itachi, to encourage him and tell him not to be confused by the recent rumors within the Uchiha clan. Fugaku readily agreed. He also knew that his son seemed overly intelligent and thought too much, worrying that the clan's disputes and rumors might distort Itachi. If the Hokage could personally guide him, it would be even better. Moreover, this was also a gesture of goodwill from the Hokage towards the Uchiha, and he couldn't miss this opportunity. Hiruzen held Uchiha Itachi's hand and sat side by side with him on the sofa, smiling as he asked about his recent studies and other matters. In this atmosphere, Uchiha Itachi gradually relaxed and began to like this kind grandpa. At this moment, Hiruzen suddenly patted his head. Oh dear, it's all my fault. I've been too busy lately and actually forgot to prepare some candy for the little one. He sighed lightly as he spoke, his gaze seemingly inadvertently drifting towards the desk. Uchiha Itachi also looked at the mountain of documents, obediently shaking his head. Hokage-sama doesn't need to trouble himself. Eating too much candy can make your mouth taste sweet, which isn't good for a ninja's stealth. I don't usually eat it either. Hiruzen immediately praised him greatly. Itachi truly lives up to his reputation as the Ninja Academy's top student, he's even more disciplined than my own son. Uchiha Itachi, however, pursed his lips and cautiously asked. Hokage-sama, I'd like to ask, are you busy with matters concerning the Uchiha? Hiruzen narrowed his eyes and smiled. He had called Itachi over to chat and deliberately displayed his busy work, all for this very purpose. He waved his hand and said. Not just the Uchiha, there are other matters as well. But it seems, Itachi, you're quite interested in family matters. Children your age usually aren't. Uchiha Itachi clasped his small hands uneasily and nodded. Hokage-sama, my father has also been under some pressure recently. I don't know what to do. Facing this gentle and reliable supreme ruler of Konoha, he finally couldn't help but seek help. Hiruzen gently held his hand and said softly. Itachi, whether it's a person, a family, or a village, none are perfect. There are always various misunderstandings and conflicts. Due to a misunderstanding, the Uchiha clan currently has some conflicts with the village. But just like your mom and dad occasionally argue, no matter what conflicts arise, your mom and dad are a family and will eventually reconcile. It's the same for the Uchiha and Konoha. Saying this, he looked steadily at Uchiha Itachi. So, you just need to understand your father more. His words seemed to say nothing, but in reality, they were shifting the blame onto the Uchiha. After all, it was the Uchiha who had the misunderstanding, the village did not. Uchiha Itachi nodded, half understanding, and then suddenly said. Hokage-sama, I've seen the battlefield in Kusagakure and many corpses, so I believe some conflicts cannot be resolved. Because some people don't consider their comrades family. Hiruzen's gaze sharpened, waiting for him to continue. Uchiha Itachi clenched his fist and boldly spoke his thoughts. Hokage-sama, I am still young, and there is much I don't understand, and it's difficult to distinguish right from wrong. But I know that the village is my big family, and the Uchiha is my small family. If the big family and the small family conflict, I will choose to support the big family. Hiruzen let out a long breath. Itachi, you already have the Hokage's mindset. You are destined to become a successor of the Will of Fire. Will of Fire, PFFT. In a VIP room of a casino in the capital of Hot Water, a blonde woman was holding the latest newspaper published by Konoha, spitting lightly at the 4 large characters for Will of Fire on it. She was wearing a vibrant green robe, and if anyone dared to observe the magnificent scenery beneath the robe closely, they would surely exclaim, "Biology no longer exists." But none of the attendants or gamblers here dared to peek there, because they were afraid of death. After finishing the wine in her cup and stretching, the woman pushed open the door with an air of boldness and loudly called out to the girl waiting outside. "I've rested enough, Shizune, how much money do you have left?" "No money." "Then sell Tauntaun to the barbecue shop. I'll win it back right away and redeem it." Inside the Mizukage's mansion, the 2 most important people in the Hidden Mist village knelt on cushions, discussing recent events. These things from Konoha are quite interesting, they're just right to pass the time. The third Mizukage flipped through a small book that Genshi had just sent, titled The Secret History of Mizuno High. Mizuno High, that was the third Mizukage's name. As for the secret history, well, those were the kinds of things that would get banned if published. Mizuno High's gaze swept over a line of text. Me and Hazuka Genjutsu's 80-year-old mother. Lord Genjutsu's mother, she was indeed my crush when she was young. He gently placed the book on the small table, seemingly unconcerned. Elder Genshi, there's no need to worry about Konoha's recent propaganda war, it won't change the overall situation. When Kagaya Tetsu launches his attack, everything will get better. Kagaya Tetsu's 2 plans would soon be put into motion, so he wasn't flustered. Genshi nodded in agreement. He was here to report the recent public opinion trends to the Mizukage. Since the Mizukage trusted Kagaya Tetsu so much, he had nothing to worry about. However, he still had a question to ask. The 2 discussed the ninja world situation for a while longer, and Genshi, with a few words, naturally steered the conversation towards Kagaya Tetsu. Lord Mizukage, what do you think of this child, Kagaya Tetsu? He had kept this question in his heart for a long time. On the surface, the Mizukage greatly trusted Kagaya Tetsu, bestowing supreme honor upon the child and even overlooking the incident where he provoked Kagaya Tora to suicide in the street. But Genshi, as an elder statesman who had served 3 Mizukage, clearly understood the third Mizukage's character. This clever Mizukage, who enjoyed manipulating everything from behind the scenes, would never allow a Kagaya genius to truly enter the core. Unless he had a greater purpose. The Mizukage smiled faintly. Elder Genshi, don't you all understand how I view Kagaya Tetsu? That child is bound to become a pillar of talent, we must cultivate him more. Official platitudes, meaning nothing was said. Seeing this, Genshi no longer bothered to pretend and simply got straight to the point. Hi, please forgive my obtuseness, but I still want to ask, where exactly do you want to lead the village? He even called the Mizukage by his name directly, indicating his seriousness. Genshi genuinely liked Kagaya Tetsu, not just because of the relationship between his beloved disciple and the young man, but more importantly, Kagaya Tetsu showed him hope for the Hidden Mist's rebirth. And to support Kagaya Tetsu, he had to clearly ascertain the Mizukage's intentions. The man before him had been Mizukage for many years, yet Genshi still couldn't guess his ultimate goal. Maintaining control. That factor was certainly present, but with Genshi's seasoned eye, he could tell that Mizuno High wanted more than just that. Mizuno High chuckled softly. Elder Genshi, my goal has always been pure. That is to make the Hidden Mist village strong, and then change this world. Make the village strong and then change the world. Genshi wasn't surprised by the first half of the sentence, but he had never heard the Mizukage speak of changing the world before. He wouldn't turn the entire world into the village of bloody mist, would he? Genshi couldn't help but feel a chill down his spine, when Mizuno High's calm voice came. I've recently had some new insights into Buddhism, Elder Genshi, could you perhaps offer some guidance? Genshi quickly clasped his hands together and began discussing scriptures with the Mizukage. Clearly, the Mizukage didn't want to continue the topic. In Kagaya Tetsu's backyard, a brand new training ground had been built. Chakra Scalpel. Rin Nohara shouted, her right palm glowing with a fluorescent green light, instantly condensing into a blade-shaped chakra. She targeted her opponent's weak point, swiftly swinging her right hand towards their wrist, forcing them to dodge backward. Unexpectedly, Rin Nohara's chakra scalpel instantly elongated, the green chakra extending half a meter, directly reaching towards her opponent's neck. Oh, such fast development. Keigaya Tetsu looked at the upgraded chakra scalpel, his waist and horse in alignment, leaning back to barely avoid the blade slashing at his neck. Rin Nohara didn't give up the opportunity. Taking advantage of Keigaya Tetsu's unstable footing as he leaned back, she gripped a kunai in her left hand and thrust forward, aiming for his chest. Unexpectedly, Keigaya Tetsu's hand shot out like lightning, firmly grabbing her wrist and pulling Rin Nohara down with him. So Rin Nohara was on top, and Keigaya Tetsu was on the bottom, forming a somewhat embarrassing posture. Miss Rin, I am your captive. Keigaya Tetsu simply spread his hands, lay down comfortably, and smiled at the girl kneeling on him. Being on top was good, he liked it easy. Her soft body pressed against Keigaya Tetsu, and the faint, orchid-like scent wafted into his nostrils. Mixed with the rare sunshine of the land of water, Keigaya Tetsu almost wanted to just fall asleep. Rin Nohara's hand still held the kunai, poised to stab his chest, but as Keigaya Tetsu raised his hand to block, her other hand performed the grand desolate imprisoning heaven finger, heavily poking Keigaya Tetsu's forehead. Hiss, Rin, you're actually so cunning. Keigaya Tetsu rubbed his forehead and stood up, complaining to the girl's slender back. Rin Nohara didn't turn around, her index fingers entwined behind her back. Thank you, she said softly. After receiving Keigaya Tetsu's guidance for over half a year, her strength had improved by leaps and bounds, and her mastery of medical ninjutsu was completely different from half a year ago. In Konoha, she wouldn't have had the opportunity to receive one-on-one Jonin guidance. Minato and Kakashi were too busy, and other Jonin wouldn't waste their time on a civilian girl. Keigaya Tetsu was her enemy, but without him, she wouldn't have gained these achievements. Rin Nohara felt she had to be true to her conscience. Keigaya Tetsu patted the dust off himself and chuckled. No need to thank the people of the village of Bloody Mist, after all, we're all ruthless fools. Keigaya Tetsu was mocking Konoha's recent reports. In Konoha's propaganda, the Hidden Mist committed all sorts of evil deeds, from starting world wars to kicking old grandmas crossing the street. There was nothing a Kirigakure ninja couldn't do, and they were all like Emperor Kawa. He wasn't surprised. Konoha was so ruthless in slandering its own people, let alone its opponents. It was already considerate that they didn't say the Hidden Mist village couldn't afford tea eggs. But Keigaya Tetsu wished Konoha would do that. As soon as Konoha started slandering the Hidden Mist, Keigaya Tetsu had Rin Nohara use the transformation jutsu to go out and wander around, but he reminded her not to go too far, and especially not to try to steal a boat and go out to sea, as the Hidden Mist's Anbu were not to be trifled with. He also didn't restrict Rin Nohara from reading Konoha's newspapers, instead, he actively told her about Konoha's smear campaign against the Hidden Mist. Hearing Keigaya Tetsu's taunt at this moment, Rin Nohara glared at him fiercely but didn't know what to say. She had long discovered that the Hidden Mist village was completely different from what Konoha's reports claimed. This village was indeed closed off and backward, far less sunny and prosperous than Konoha, but most of the people living here were ordinary citizens, and the greatest wish of ordinary people everywhere was to live their own small lives well, not to go around killing everyone. Once, Rin Nohara transformed into a ragged child, and several people spontaneously offered her food and thoughtfully asked if she wanted to be sent to an orphanage, which deeply moved her. Although she was unwilling to admit it, she found that there were good people even in the village of Bloody Mist. The guy in front of her seemed to barely qualify as one. But Rin Nohara didn't want to be persuaded by Keigaya Tetsu, so she pouted and said, I admit that not all of you in the Hidden Mist village are bad people, but no matter what, we Konoha ninja are still much kinder than you. At least I've never seen a Kirigakure ninja rescuing kittens and puppies on the battlefield. Keigaya Tetsu scoffed. Yes, letting tens of thousands of innocents die, and then bragging about saving a few cats and dogs, Konoha ninja are truly kind. Rin Nohara was, after all, just a fledgling chunin and hadn't seen Konoha's dark side, so she was easily brainwashed. Just like how every time a man-made disaster occurs in the Eagle country, several news articles about rescuing kittens and puppies are sure to appear, covering up the ineffective rescue efforts. Fortunately, Rin Nohara was a smart girl. When Kagaya Tetsu exposed the hypocrisy, she suddenly realized, speechless for a long time. She was secretly angry, wishing she could sew Kagaya Tetsu's mouth shut, but she had to admit that what he said seemed very true. Rin Nohara was a little worried. She had only been in the Hidden Mist village for about half a year, and her resolve was already wavering. If this continued, would her thinking go astray? So she mustered her courage and asked the question she had long wanted to ask. Kagaya Tetsu, you said that if I still can't beat you after a year, you'll still find a way to send me back, but I'll have to promise you one thing. Why don't you tell me that thing now? I definitely can't beat you anyway. Rin Nohara knew her limits. Her training progress was fast, but to say she could defeat Kagaya Tetsu in a few months was a dream. She really disliked this feeling of being controlled. Since that was the case, it was better to lay her cards on the table early. Maybe once she knew Kagaya Tetsu's demands, she could use that information to do something. Kagaya Tetsu had been waiting for Rin Nohara to say this, and he showed a smile that made her feel a little uneasy. Rin, I'll show you the real world. Thanks for watching.